Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my oldest daughter is demanding to use my younger daughter's wedding fund to buy a house. Me, 59 male, and my wife, who's 53, have two daughters who we'll call Rose and Lily. They're 27 and 24. They both earn roughly the same amount of money, which is quite a lot for their ages. Rose has a 2-year-old and a husband who earns a fair bit less than her, and Lily has a boyfriend who earns a bit more than her. They both inherited a big chunk of money from my mother, enough for a 10 to 15% deposit on a house they could realistically buy. Rose has always lived beyond her means, and certainly her husband's. They've alluded to using some of their house savings when their daughter, Poppy, was born, despite my wife looking after Poppy full-time while my daughter worked. Her husband has recently confessed he hasn't saved a penny in almost 10 years they've been together. On the other hand, Lily and her boyfriend have almost doubled the original amount saved and never seem to have any issues with money, whilst we constantly seem to be helping out Rose. Both girls are looking at buying houses. Lily and her boyfriend have been approved for a lovely house with a 25% deposit. Rose also had an offer accepted, but as it turned out, due to commuting costs and childcare from moving away, adding up to almost the cost of another mortgage, they will only be able to get a mortgage for roughly half of what they thought. And they only have 5%. Rose told Lily this and asked how on earth she had been accepted on a bigger house as a younger couple. Lily was honest and told her how much she made as a couple and how much they were putting down, and Rose broke down a little. She asked how much we had given Lily, and we told her nothing extra. That night, my wife and I were talking, and she said she didn't realize how badly Rose was financially and how well Lily is doing. We had paid for Rose's wedding and planned to do so for Lily too, but so far she's insisted she doesn't want or need it. I want to keep that money so we can still offer it to her when the time comes, even if Lily won't accept it, but my wife wants to give the money to Rose, as she says having a baby makes it a lot harder for Rose, and she doesn't want the money to go to waste when our only grandchild doesn't have a home. Not the jerk. Taking the money earmarked for Lily's wedding and giving it to Rose is literally throwing the good money after the bad. The difference between the two sisters is not how much they earn, but how well they manage what they have. Lily and her partner are financially savvy and responsible, and Rose and her husband are not. No matter how much money you give Rose, it will go to waste. Not the jerk. But even if Lily turns down the money, you aren't doing Rose any favors. This isn't the case of someone losing their job and struggling, or someone getting in debt after an injury or an illness. This is someone who lived outside of their means and never saved a dime in a decade. I wouldn't be surprised if you have to keep bailing her out if she doesn't learn how to become a fiscally responsible adult. Your wife is the jerk. She's actively enabling your oldest in her bad decisions. The child does not suffer from homelessness. She's almost 30. It's time to put some boundaries down. Stop helping her live over her means. Teach her the reality of life. Your eldest is clearly the golden child of your life. You go, sir. Keep things equal. If your youngest doesn't want the money, put it in a trust fund for her future, kids or not. If the eldest can't budget, it's not the youngest's duty to sacrifice nonstop for her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
Hey Reddit boy, when dad pays for the wedding, do you think he should get to invite some of his friends?
Don't try me, Karen. Am I the jerk for correcting the woman my friend is dating about her status in his life? My longtime friend Joey, 33 male, and I, 31 female, work for a horse breeding and training facility. The job comes with a nice house that's on the property. We get to live in it for free, and we have for 6 years. When I say nice, I mean 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, dual master with a pool and a hot tub. Kind of dated, but it would probably be considered a mansion by some. There are some catches. Basically, it doubles as a bed and breakfast for out-of-town clients. Especially during show season, we're expected to do a lot of cooking and entertaining there. But we both love it, which is why we stay here. I don't really date much. I'm more of an independent person by nature and a homebody. Joey is kind of the opposite. He's got a lot of disposable income, and he kind of lives the player lifestyle when he has time to, but our jobs are taxing, so we spend a lot of the time just hanging out together at the house, smoking and playing video games. He's my buddy. We spend most days together when he isn't on the road. He's really upfront about not wanting a relationship with the women he sees. I do know this. Dude is on like every dating site. The issue is he will occasionally have women he sees regularly, and they sometimes will get the impression things are progressing. And I usually start becoming someone they don't like being around so much and start to ask why I live there. He's currently seen 4 different women periodically, 2 of them quite regularly. They're aware that he does not consider it a relationship, but he also doesn't tell them if, when, or how many others there are, and kind of just avoids that topic with them. Recently, one came over, Kelly, who's 36, and he was finishing up with a client in the barn. I invited her in, got her a drink, and invited her to watch TV with me while she waited for him. When we were talking, she started asking about my relationship and if I planned to move out of Joey's house. I'm assuming she worded it that way because Joey is the head trainer at the farm, so he's kind of the star of the show. I'm the manager, so much less glamorous position, but I do make more than him. I told her it was both of our house, not just his, and I didn't have any plans to move out. She then said, "It's just weird that at his age, he would want a female roommate when he's in a relationship." I said, "He's in a relationship?" Her response was that it wasn't official, but they pretty much were. I told her that was news to me. That seemed to offend her, and she said, "Well, maybe you didn't know because you aren't the most important woman in his life. He doesn't have to get your permission." I said, "You're right, he doesn't. I actually don't care. I'm just surprised because if I had to rank the chicks he's currently seeing, you're maybe number 2. This obviously didn't go over well, and she ended up leaving. Ouch. She called Joey, and things there ended. He told me that he was not aware they were basically in a relationship, and said knowing that, he's glad it ended. Our other friend/coworker says it was a jerk thing to say to her. I didn't like her implying that I wasn't welcome in my own home, so I corrected some of her inaccurate beliefs about the situation, and it was the truth. Well, almost. Joey said she was more like number 3. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but I have no idea how he manages to have that much energy to entertain that many people. Not the jerk, and I was totally cracking up at the fact that she thought she could act like the mistress of the house and try to push you out. Great job schooling her. The moment when she realized she wasn't even a side character, but she was acting like the main character. I mean, yeah, you could have handled that better. I 100% believe your friend isn't being as honest with these women as you're trying to get us to think he is. He needs to be honest with these people, and not in a way that embarrasses them and makes them feel bad the way that you did. Everyone sucks here, including you and your friend, who seems like a jerk. Being completely passive-aggressive to a woman who likely is being misled by her friend in the first place. Don't get me wrong, the woman was showcasing heavy insecurities and projecting it upon OP, but OP didn't need to push it as hard as she did. There's ways of handling unpleasant people that don't require acting how she did. I would have just said, "I don't appreciate you questioning why I'm living where I am just because you're spending time with my roommate. If you have questions about that, you should probably talk to him, because I'm not here for you to overstep your boundaries with, and I won't sit here having you speak to me like that." Okay, you are all jerks. Straggling along 5 women at the same time as if it's funny, fair, or a joke? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP, her roommate, or his girlfriend? Well, she's not actually his girlfriend, she's just one of his, circle, I guess? Please let us know. If you just want to hook up with people and aren't actually interested in a relationship, always make that clear to them. Am I the jerk for yelling at my family for getting me a birthday cake I don't want for the 15th year in a row? Unfortunately, I, 18 female, was born a day after my cousin, who's 20 female. Ever since I was little, my needs for my birthday were always outshined by hers. We always did family events to celebrate our birthdays since we were the eldest kids in the family, so we just kind of shared our birthday party. We had the same cake. My family either never wrote my name on it or would messily scribble it on at the last minute. Party decorations and games catered to her taste, and mostly all gifts would be for her. I just usually ended up getting a $10 gift card for Walmart or something, while she always got dolls, games for her Nintendo DS, and even a puppy one time. I always felt like I didn't matter for my birthday. Even my quinceañera fell flat, since my family went all out making my cousin feel like the most special girl in the world. But my cousin was always nice to me, and she would give me some of her gifts just to put a smile on my face. This year was my 18th birthday, and all my relatives were gathered in one place to celebrate me and my cousin's birthdays. My mother had promised me my own separate cake and that it would be an Oreo ice cream cake, my favorite. So I was excited. When my abuela gathered the family together to blow out the candles and sing happy birthday, my cousin and I got in our respective spots. They started singing while my mother brought a cake to the table and placed it in front of my cousin. It was a strawberry cheesecake. After we got done singing, my cousin blew out her candles and everybody clapped. My aunt started to cut the cake, and I would audibly ask about my cake. My entire family looks confused and they all say, "This cake is for the both of you." My cousin spoke up, saying, "But it only has my name on it." I looked at my mom, who had a "what?" expression on her face. I asked about the cake and she told me,
You don't need the extra sugar.
At that point, I just lost it, screaming at my family members and calling them all jerks. I cried about how this is the 15th year in a row that they've left me out and forgot about me, and how they ruined my birthday by always prioritizing my cousin. My cousin and little brother also jumped in and defended me, saying that I'm always never thought of. My abuela had the audacity to deliberately interrupt me, telling me to sit down and stop yelling. Through anger, I yelled that I never wanted to see any of them again, and I stormed off. My cousin and brother followed me, all comforting me while I cried my eyes out. This happened a few days ago, and I've been receiving angry messages from my family members calling me an ungrateful jerk. I'm at my cousin's apartment right now writing this, all while texting my little brother to vent. Reddit, am I the jerk for yelling at my family for not giving me the cake that I've wanted for nearly my entire lifetime? Edit. After reading the replies, my cousin and I have made the decision to block all of the toxic family members and go no contact. I'll be living at my cousin's apartment now, and we're working on finding me a job. Final edit. I won't be responding to any more comments, but just know that I'm in a safe place now, and we're working on where to go from here. Not just a job, but finding a way to afford college for me and such. Your cousin and brother sound like the only reasonable people. Maybe you could go out, just the three of you, for cake. OP. Funny enough, that's exactly what happened after I walked off. My cousin took my brother and I back to her apartment, and she went to our local Walmart to get me an Oreo ice cream cake, as well as 18 candles. She sang Feliz Cumpleaños to me and gave me $100. Where are your parents in all of this? Why have they let this happen over the years? OP. My parents funded the parties, as well as my aunt, uncle, and abuela. I remember asking them why I never got my own cake when I was 11, and they simply told me, "We just don't have enough money." But that's a lie, since our house that I've grown up in is pretty big. They have 2 BMWs in the driveway, and my little brother is going to private school soon. Did your mom forget? Is she just too broke? OP. It seemed like she just didn't want to get it. She even texted me, "Can't believe you're mad that I didn't get you a darn cake. You didn't need it anyways." Why is everyone against you? What is the root of this favoritism? Is there any context? OP. I hate to make this a self-pity party, but I'll tell you what's happened to me growing up. I was kind of an unwanted kid by my dad since he always wanted a son, and I wasn't feminine enough for my mother. I even remember when I turned 6 that my parents just kind of put me to the side after my little brother was born. I've never really felt like I earned the spotlight enough. They would always congratulate my brother when he made an accomplishment, but mine just kind of fell flat. My parents are the type that believe that art isn't a real job, so they just kind of shook me away whenever I showed them a drawing I made. And my mother would always make offhand comments about how much she wishes that I was like my cousin, who's more feminine, traditionally ladylike, and was an academic scholar back in school. I was basically a C- average student, tomboyish, and kind of average looking in appearance. I get that I'm not the perfect kid, but I kind of wish my parents would at least treat me like their kid, you know? Growing up, my parents always compared me to my cousin. Emily has better grades, her pictures look prettier, her blonde locks are gorgeous. You're going into art? Well, she's going into medical school. I've never resented my cousin for being better, but I hated my parents constantly shoving it in my face. I'm 25 female. My boyfriend, who's 25, of 12 years, has told me he's had a baby. How do I get over this? I've been with my boyfriend since we were both in middle school. I always imagined we would be together forever. He's the only guy I've been with. He's the only boyfriend I've ever had. I've given up so much for him. I didn't pursue my chosen career and go to uni as it would have meant moving away from him. I passed up the opportunity to move abroad with my family, and I now have no family living in this country anymore. I passed up going traveling and nights out with friends on what should have been the best years of my life. We own a house together, we split the mortgage, but I put the full $10,000 deposit down as I am in a financially better position than him. I always envisioned growing old with him, spending my life with him, having kids with him. We briefly broke up in December, early January for a few weeks after an argument. He went out and hooked up with somebody else, but didn't tell me. We just got back together and nothing was said. Yesterday, he speaks to me, very upset, and tells me that in September, the woman that he had hooked up with had a baby. I asked why he didn't tell me sooner, and he said because he doubted the kid was his and he wanted to block it all out, so he was ignoring her. But the girl contacted his mother, and his mother had a grandparent DNA test done and proved she's the grandmother. Ever since, his mom has been arguing with him about being involved, as she sees the baby every weekend and is telling him that he needs to tell me. He only told me because his mom said if he didn't, then she would. I don't know how to handle this. Boyfriend is crying, saying he was trapped, that she had told him there was no way she could get pregnant. He's saying he's not ready and he doesn't want to lose me and is making threats on himself if I leave him. I don't know what to do. Do I forget these past 12 years and all I've ever known and move on? Or do I forgive him and try to make this work? Edit. I did message the girl, probably against my better judgment, and asked how we could move forward, and I sent her my best wishes. She just said that she doesn't care if he does or doesn't want to be involved, and that the door's open, but she's glad his family are involved. Then she blocked me. I don't want a stepkid at all. I don't even want a kid of my own for at least another 5 years. I asked him how we would move on from this, and he said, "We'll just pretend the kid doesn't exist and go on about our lives," which disgusted me because I never thought he was the type of coward to abandon his kid like this, and I don't want to be seen as enabling him to do that. I truly believe even if I was out of his life, he wouldn't see the kid, and with us still together in that situation, I'd be seen as the evil one and like I somehow condone his actions. I envisioned him as a strong man of good character, and the fact he doesn't want involvement with the kid and keeps referring to the baby as it, and has even blocked his mom off everything because she is seeing the baby and he doesn't want her to, makes me look at him in a different cowardly light and is giving me the ick. If he had told me when he found out that he had got a girl pregnant but they'd need a DNA test, then got a DNA when the baby was born and he'd stuck by the kid, I don't think I'd even be asking this question. I'd be upset and not want to be a step-parent, and I doubt I would be involved myself for a few years, but I'd have supported him and accepted his mistake. The way he's gone about it has ruined everything. If he truly loved me and cared about me, he would have told me from day one. Honey, you're done. You're still so young. You can do better than this. You will do better without this. 1. Break up with him. 2. Sell the house and split the proceeds, minus your down payment. 3. Go to college. You should never ever limit yourself educationally or professionally for a boyfriend. This is a very hard lesson to learn, but I hope you take this to heart. You are young, you still have time to go to college and start a great career. This would be a deal breaker for me personally. Also the fact that he didn't tell you about it until he had to and is now being emotionally manipulative so you don't leave. At 25, you've got the world ahead of you instead of being someone's stepmom. Exactly. Get out of this. You will learn nothing from being a stepmother to help you in this relationship. The baby's mother is already against you. She's blocked you, and it may only get worse. He's been with you since you were in middle school, but he meets this random, hooks up with her, trusts her word that she can't have kids, finally tells you nearly a year later that he's a father. So in effect, he's telling you he trusts her more than you. I see misery in your future with this dynamic. Leave now while you still can. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. This the type of dude to refuse to pay child support until the court mandates it, then expect his girlfriend to help him pay it. Am I the jerk for refusing to revoke our prenup? I, 32 male, have been married to my wife, 30 female, for over 2 years now, and we've been together for 6 years. I come from a substantially wealthy family. I have a few assets, both inherited and built upon, in my name. My wife, on the other hand, comes from a lower income household. When we started dating, the economic difference was very evident. While I trust her in general, my family is riddled with stories of gold diggers, in both genders. So I told her if we were to get married, I would be comfortable enough only if she signed a prenup. It's not as in I won't share my privilege with her at all. I would provide the best life for us as long as we are together. She agreed, readily claiming she loved me for me and not for my wealth. Hence, we have a prenup. To clarify, she was working all that time, but with our income disparity, I was covering 70% of expenses. Barely a year into marriage, she got pregnant. We were happy about it. 5 months in, she wanted to quit her job. I supported her decision since I was making enough money to support us. But 3 months into having our newborn, she demands I revoke the prenup. Her argument is she's staying home to raise our kid and putting her career on the line, so there should not be any prenup. I reminded her that I was taking care of us financially while she stayed home with our baby. I look after baby when I'm home as well. She said that's my duty as a father. I said, by that logic, staying home with our baby is her duty as a mother and not something to be compensated for. Not to mention it was her choice to stay home. She got upset with me, saying I don't care about her at all. It's untrue, But her logic is not making sense here. She's not letting this go and keeps saying that I'm ruining her life by holding my purse strings so tight. That she deserves to be on the title of our home at least. When I reminded her it's a premarital property, and if she wants her name on a title deed, we can buy a new property together when she gets back to work. Further info. I'm not only taking care of my family financially, I'm also putting money into her retirement fund. I just put my income, other than properties, into our joint account, and we both spend from it. Am I the jerk for not revoking the prenup? If this situation was not covered in the prenup, you need better lawyers. Also, a prenup cannot waive away or nullify child support, and in many states, a judge can override it during the divorce if the terms are lopsided. As a compromise, you should do a postnuptial amendment to the prenup to reassure her that your kids and her will still be secure if something happens. She's probably scared that she's going to be at home raising the kids and you will leave her and she'll end up homeless and broke. It's scary. She's at home taking care of your baby, which is a full-time job, saving money for daycare and enriching your kid's life. It isn't scary until you're in the scenario she's in. She had a job and hadn't experienced the situation she's in until she's in it. Take a step back from the prenup side of things and just listen to her and realize it's a lot deeper than her being after your money. She just needs some reassurance. If this was you, I'm sure you'd be feeling similar, especially if more kids are in your future. She's still in postpartum. It's really hard. You are all over the place. Hormones and needing to feel secure is scary, especially if she's never had to rely on someone while not working before. He pays for a chef and a housekeeper. His wife isn't responsible for housework or cooking. He's offered to be a stay-at-home father while she returns to work. He's offered to hire a nanny so she can return to work. He's funding her 401k while she's a stay-at-home mom with inflation adjustments. She has full access to his marital assets, no allowance. If she wasn't stressed before about not having access to his full assets, her new free time may have resulted in a toxic friend undermining her sense of security. People with massive wealth tend to attract these kinds of leeches. I can't blame OP for starting to be concerned. Do you have something in your prenup about alimony? Because if not, you're going to be done for. The courts in most states will favor a stay-at-home mom who lost out on career earnings over a rich dude. You guys should do a postnup at minimum to cover alimony, and she should speak to a family lawyer. Not the jerk. Yeah, you married a gold digger. She was just more patient than most. You're the jerk. This sounds like a really bad and unfair prenup if the deal is she has your baby, gives up her career to take care of the baby, then gets nothing if you decide to run off with a 20-year-old in 10 years. Prenups are supposed to protect both parties, not one. And good prenups definitely don't leave the mother of your baby, who is doing free child labor amounts to tens of thousands of dollars a year that you'd have to pay for if you were a single father, desolate in the event of a divorce you can decide is happening on a whim. Renegotiate the prenup. Make it fair, protect yourself, but also have the minimum decency to recognize she is working right now, albeit as a stay-at-home mom, and she also needs protection for what she's putting into building your life in the event of a divorce. OP. She did not just have my baby, she had our baby. I never said she's not working, but I am also working and contributing equitably to the family. It was also her choice to stay home. I support her in whatever she decides. If she decides to go back tomorrow, I will support her there too. And for the money she is supposedly saving me, and it should be saving us, because the baby is ours, not just mine. I'm fully funding her lifestyle, plus her share of baby-related expenses and household expenses, and putting money into retirement, which is combined more of an amount than her previous income was. If you're working and contributing equitably, why are you the only one who would end up richer than you were if the relationship ends? OP. Because I started off richer before marriage. It's premarital assets and income from them, not marital. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. I'm not so sure the people on Reddit are the best people to be talking to about this. Think I'd consult with some experts on this one. My Karen neighbor is demanding a copy of my apartment key. So I recently moved into my new apartment complex less than 60 days ago. There are only 4 units in my complex, 2 downstairs and 2 upstairs. I reside downstairs in the second apartment. Everyone here has lived here for at least 5 years, whilst the oldest resident has lived here for 8. Everyone knows everyone and has been good friends with each other for as long as each one has been a resident. Everyone in my building has kids besides me, and the majority are single mothers. I'm the only man. Apparently, there's an unspoken agreement I at first had no knowledge of between the other tenants that the hallway door is to never be locked. No one ever locks the hallway door. That was until I arrived. From my knowledge, no one in the building has a hallway key, just the keys to their own apartments. The cost to replace a key is $70, quoted from my landlord. I just finished up my place and have officially moved in for about 3 weeks now. Each time I leave and come back from my complex, I always lock the hallway door. It's always been important to lock all doors around me. My neighbor that works night shift has arrived home for the past couple of weeks to a locked hallway door, which is a surprise given that the door hasn't been locked for years. Apparently, everyone lost their key their first year or so living in the complex. I will hear continuous knocking and banging until someone comes to open the door. The first few nights I was awakened and I got up to unlock the door. After the first week, I've since stopped answering and my neighbor will get up to go unlock it to let our other neighbor in. If my neighbor isn't home or doesn't wake up to come to the door, she will knock and bang on every window and yell until someone comes to open the door. Yesterday, my neighbor asked if I could please leave the door unlocked, given that it's always been that way and they would like me to continue doing so. I expressed that while we live in a dangerous neighborhood, rated one of the top 5 most dangerous in our city, I feel more safe knowing strangers can't enter our building. While she understood my concerns, she assured me no one ever comes here other than residents and their visitors, and my safety is not to worry about. I had to beg to differ. She then asks would I mind lending her my hall key so she can make a copy and let others make their own copy from hers. I politely declined because I wasn't comfortable with that. She offered to pay me to make a copy myself, and which I also declined. For the past week, my neighbors have barely spoken to me. We usually tell each other good morning and chat a little bit, or just say hi or bye, but not even that nowadays. My neighbor, whom volunteers at the food bank in our community, would come back with goodies and share with everyone in the complex. And she no longer knocks on my door to offer me a box as she usually did every Wednesday. I don't care for the food, but the change in this routine leads me to believe I may have upset the rest of the tenants, and I honestly don't want any bad blood. So, my understanding is that this is a communal hallway leading to individual apartment entrances, and the doors to individual apartments can be locked? I don't understand why you wouldn't let them copy your hallway key if that's the case, to be honest. It costs like $3 to $5. You're the jerk. Not always. Some high security keys can be expensive, but it doesn't matter as he's not being asked to pay for it. You're the jerk. You live in a dangerous neighborhood and you're making it so your neighbors are trapped outside at night. You aren't participating in letting them in despite knowing that you locked them out. And you refuse to get them a copy of the communal door key even though they're happy to pay for it. Dude, you suck. Counterpoint. Why has everyone else lost their high security door key? Landlords should charge them all to replace the lock. That's a serious concern. If they pay you for a copy, I don't see what your issue is. It's $70 for the landlord to do it, so it would be cheaper if you did it for everyone. If you want that community and connection, then you have to give a little to get a little back. You're the jerk. Am I the jerk for jumping out of the way when my niece and nephew tried to push me into the pool? Plus updates. My folks decided to host a barbecue because I guess that's what older people do. I declined because I really don't like my 2 sisters, their husbands, or their kids. Wife and I are child-free. Mom then pressured my wife. Long story short, we went. By the time we arrived, there were about 20 people there. My sisters and their husbands were already solidly buzzed. Drunk, really. My mom was spending 100% of her time trying to keep the nieces and nephews, ages 7 to 11, more or less under control. My dad had strategically retreated to the whirlpool part of the pool with small cooler full of beers. Wife and I made small talk with miscellaneous people, ate food, and we had a frozen margarita. Sisters and brother-in-laws took turns criticizing us for being late, not being in our swimsuits, and messing up the vibe. Whatever. Typical suburban summer get-together. About 45 minutes in, 2 of the kids ran at one of the neighbor guests who was standing next to the pool and pushed her in. She was at the pool steps, stumbled in, but didn't really fall, so only got half wet. She was clearly very unhappy about it, but she didn't make a scene. Just went over to where the parents were, grabbed their towels, dried herself off, and left. Sisters and brother-in-laws thought it was funny. A bit later, I was standing a few feet away from the pool, chatting away with someone. I saw 3 of the kids running full tilt at me from the corner of my eye. Obviously, I was next. Not that it's terribly difficult to outwit the kids, but I just jumped out of their way at the last second. All 3 of them ran straight into the pool at full speed. Most of the other guests, including my wife and me, started laughing, but their moms, who as I mentioned were pretty buzzed, absolutely freaked out. Apparently, 2 of the kids couldn't even swim. Since I wasn't in swim gear, I stepped back from the pool and let other people fish them out. The little brats were bawling their heads off. At that point, all heck broke loose. The 4 drunk parents were yelling at everyone in general, and me in particular for what I had done, and also because 2 of the kids had been videoing the trick using their parents' iPhones, which were now at the bottom of the pool. One of my brother-in-laws got into the pool to try to retrieve the phones, but his BMI and BAC made that impossible. No one else volunteered to help, unsurprising given that my sisters were still jerks to everyone. I told my sisters it was their job to watch their kids, and that if anything had happened to them, it would have been their responsibility, not mine. There were some pretty strong words on both sides. Wife and I left after the other brother-in-law fell over and face-planted while yelling at us. Now they're saying I should have let the kids knock me into the pool and have their fun, and ruin my phone. So, am I the jerk? Side note, Dad, of course, never got out of the whirlpool. Edit. I realize that they're just kids and they were just having fun. The fact that they thought this was okay is more of a reflection of their parents than them. Just wish we hadn't gone. It's nice to see my folks and their neighbors, but I really don't like my sisters or their husbands. They don't hide their envy of us, and they're just exhausting to be around. I've never been close to my sisters. They're 8 and 10 years older than me. I also don't have much in common with their husbands. They're okay guys, but I just don't give a hoot about the things that are important to them and vice versa. I do know that the 4 of them are somewhat envious of our lifestyle. Both the sisters are stay-at-home moms. Both the husbands make good money. One makes noticeably more than I do. But both my wife and I have professional careers, we don't have kids, and we are way more responsible with money. As a result, we have a lot more investments, etc. And we don't have to drive cars full of kid debris, and we take nice trips once or twice a year. It definitely grates on both sisters and by extension their husbands, so we get some petty behavior from them on an ongoing basis. Neither my wife nor I enjoy their company, which is why I wanted to skip the get-together. Just not worth it to me, but my wife is a positive person and is usually happy to see them. Hopefully next time your wife won't feel guilted into going. That's probably the one positive thing that will come out of this. Wife is much more tolerant and forgiving than I am towards my siblings, but based on what she was saying on the way home, I think she's had it with them as well. Your dad sounds awesome. Yeah, he's very chill. He loves being around groups of people. He used to be in sales. He likes people to enjoy themselves and is definitely enjoying life as a retiree. He and 2 other guys with him just sat there and watched the show. Mom's cool too, but the situation upset her. Update. After we left, the party ended on a pretty sour note. My drunk brother-in-law who face-planted while yelling at me had to go to urgent care and get his face stitched up. He was too toasted to drive, so Dad took him. Dad was very not happy about this. Later that evening, my sisters started a group text and said some really nasty things. Their husbands threw in a few comments as well. Wife and I blocked the 4 of them. My mom called me, and she was pretty upset about what they had said. She and Dad were in the chat, and I don't blame her. Because of the texts, my folks insisted my sisters and brother-in-laws come over the next day, Sunday, without their kids to get some things straight and lay down some ground rules, Mom's wording. The result was a contrite, if unenthusiastic, apology from the siblings via my mom's phone. I'm glad my wife was with me when they called. Her hard stares kept me from saying things I wanted to. I just told them thanks and that we felt no need to discuss it further. Since I thought things were settled, I unblocked them. That evening, I got a text from one of my brother-in-laws telling me that the phones cost them this much money and asking if I'd be paying for them. What? I replied, never. Took a screenshot of his message and sent it to my folks with a note that we were done with this nonsense. We're going no contact with sisters and their spouses and not to invite us to any more holidays or get-togethers if they'll be there. Then I blocked my sisters and their spouses again. At that point, crap really hit the fan. Dad called them and laid into them. Among other things, he told them that grandkids were not welcome at his place indefinitely. Since my mom regularly provides free babysitting, that got them pretty rattled. He also banned them from using the vacation house and told them my wife and I actually own it, not he and Mom. This completely freaked them out. Both of my sisters' families use that place a lot, including having their friends up there for weekend getaways. This was very much out of character for my folks. They'd clearly had it. And for reference, I never wanted my sisters to know that we owned the place. We bought it for my folks. They had always wanted a place in the mountains. Keeping the ownership quiet was just a way to avoid drama with my siblings. A couple of days later, my sisters and their husbands came to our place unannounced to apologize in person. We were out to dinner and they left a note. One sister also called me at work too. I sent her a voicemail. We've decided being no contact is the best thing for the indefinite future and haven't interacted with them for at least 3+ weeks. Personally, I'm done. They can buzz off. Update. It's been less than a month, but I have to say that blocking them has actually made our lives noticeably more peaceful. I hadn't realized how much ongoing low-level drama they create. It's not toxic, they're not bad people, they're just tiresome and petty. And I personally don't care about them using the weekend place. It's ours technically, but we bought it for my folks. They control it, and they decide who uses it when they're not there. We pay for all of the operating costs and taxes. One good thing about this blow-up is that we now know what we'll be doing with the property once my folks get older. I was prepared to take over managing it, allocating weekends, maintaining it and such, but now we know we'll just sell it, and if we want to go up to the mountains, we'll just rent an Airbnb. OP's wife held a talent show at their wedding reception. Now she's jealous of her friend's performance. I, male 28, knew her since college, and I'll get that out of the way first. The past few days have shown a different side of her that's a little surprising because Kate is her best friend from college. My wife, Nancy, wanted to do a mini talent show at our reception, and she talked it up beforehand too. She read a poem that she made for the event, and Kate performed a song that she wrote. Long story short, one of the guests who I invited is into producing, and he reached out to her after she performed. They exchanged information, and Kate was really excited. He wanted to network with her following the reception, and she even thanked my wife for hosting the talent show over text. But Nancy became really bitter about it, and that's why I'm writing this. She hasn't responded to Kate's message, but she said that she regretted doing the talent show. She also asked me to block Edward, the producer, on my socials and contacts, and I told her that seemed a bit much. She didn't like my answer and said that I was wrong to not take her side after just getting married, but I told her she should be happy for her friend. She didn't like that either and vented to some in our friend group about how Kate was bragging, but some of them disagreed. She said she didn't want to hang out with them anymore for the time being, and that included me too. Two of her girlfriends even texted me that she was overreacting and that they were also surprised to see her acting this way. They also asked if she was okay too. My dad is suggesting counseling and said that asking me to remove friends is an unhealthy way to start a marriage, and I'm honestly more than a little scared. I asked if she'd be open to counseling, but she said there was no need because Kate was her friend first, and I shouldn't choose Kate over her. I just want to ask what to do next since she refused counseling and sees no issue with cutting off our friends. Edit. I want to add that Nancy complained that her poem didn't get as good of a reception as Kate's song. Kate didn't study music in college, but practices on the side, and her text was really thankful for the opportunity that the talent show provided. Kate is also engaged to her longtime boyfriend. Update. It's been a little over 2 weeks since my first post, and I've had some time to try and process. A lot of it still feels surreal, having known her since my early 20s and the 180 after the wedding. I want to address a few things that were asked in my first post before getting to the update. Nancy and Kate were not the only ones who performed at the talent show. During planning, Nancy said she wanted to showcase her friends and how awesome and proud she was to have them. She also said it was a bonding thing between her girlfriends from our friend group, and the girls were the ones who performed. However, given her post-reception 180, it really surprised me in comparison to her pre-talent show mindset. A few people commented that she didn't need to have a talent show to read the poem she made for the wedding. She could have just read it any time as the bride. The reason I'm writing this post is because of something else that came up and led to a conversation. We had a vacation coming up, but she no longer wants to go on it. In the time since my first post, she's continued to have random mood swings due to thinking about Kate. Sometimes that's venting about how Kate would have nothing without her, or getting really quiet and distant, even while eating. She's also still upset at her girlfriends who she vented to about Kate. But when they disagreed and called her out for being bitter over a talent show no one forced her to have, she told me to cut off our friend group, along with blocking the producer and girlfriends too. When I disagreed, she became distant and said I was choosing them over her. When I asked Kate why this bothered her so much, she said that she tried to publish in the past a novel and that she didn't get any hand-me-downs. But when I reminded her that my friend was a producer on the side in his basement, she said, I should have known better to invite him because I should have known that he would have liked Kate's song. When I told her that I wouldn't block the producer or entire friend group, she said I was entitled like Kate and that she wanted a break because I didn't care about her. I told her that I love her, but I didn't think it was healthy to cut everyone off. I also told her that she should be happy for her friend because Kate was really grateful, but she didn't seem to care. She has since gone to stay with her parents and left some of her things in our apartment. I talked to my dad after she ignored my texts and calls for a few days, and he suggested bringing up an annulment because it had gone too far. Her parents have also ignored my calls, but I want to clarify Kate's text before I'm done. Kate wasn't arrogant or anything to Nancy. All she did was thank her for putting together the talent show that allowed her to network with the producer after the wedding, and she also offered to take her out to lunch as a thanks. There was no arrogance from Kate, and the producer is also engaged, as some people inquired about too. I'm just really surprised and hurt that her bitterness turned me into a bad guy for inviting my producer friend as if I was supposed to see into the future and not invite him. Update. We are currently in the process of a divorce. She's staying with her parents, and I've had some time to process and see things differently. I want to touch on 2 things that happened since my update. The first is a Facebook post she made about me and the guests. In her post, she said she was supposed to win, and that it was an unwritten rule for the bride to win, as if wedding talent shows are normal. She also accused them of smiting her on her day when no one knew about the show beforehand except her participating friends. Then she accused me of taking Kate's side instead of comforting her as her new husband, but taking her side meant cutting off our friend group as she had in the aftermath. I don't know how her parents feel after she called out both sides of the guests, but I really don't care at this point. She wanted me to cut off my friend, Edward, and I wasn't going to do that. I talked to Edward recently about everything, including how she wanted to cut him off, and he couldn't believe how much it affected her. Nancy and I watched a football game at his house with him and his fiancée a few months back, and he has a day job in an office. When I told him about how Nancy was jealous of Kate's big break, he couldn't believe it and said that he planned to let Kate use his audio interface to plug into her guitar and record a high-quality instrumental of her original song along with his microphone too. He also said he wasn't great at mixing and was taking online courses to learn, so he was going to suggest that she commission someone to mix and enhance the files they'd record because he was far from a professional. He's a really chill guy, but he couldn't stop laughing over how Nancy thought that he was all that. He only wanted to use his interface to give her a high-quality recording after learning that she didn't have equipment and recorded her original on her phone. He and his fiancée planned to have her over for dinner, just like they had me and Nancy over for football, and recorded in the basement afterwards. Looking back in hindsight, it's crazy how you can be blinded to things, but I never imagined just how crazy she could get. I didn't say this in my first 2 posts because I thought it might overshadow her actions, but she sometimes posts about women empowerment on her socials, and I recently thought about that for one reason. When I asked her why she wanted to have a talent show, she said she wanted to emphasize the importance of having good friends because they were important to a relationship. But as I look at it now, perhaps it was never about that. Nancy was bothered the second that Kate's song got a better reception than her, and she doubled down when she vented to 2 of her girlfriends after the wedding, who called her out for being jealous, and that made her demand I also cut them off. Am I the jerk for allowing the police in my home? So over the summer, my husband's son, Jay, stays with his mom. He's 16. He gets home and gets everything ready for school. I noticed his mom gave him a new gaming system, and I didn't say anything as he put it in his room. It's not uncommon for his mom to buy him things. The police show up at my house and ask to see both me and Jay. His dad is working. I let the police come in, and they asked about his gaming system, and I tell him sure, that I saw him unpack it. Once Jay goes into the living room, I'm told that it's stolen. I freak out. I yell at Jay, and the police arrest him and tell me I can come get him after the booking process. It will take a few hours. I let them take Jay and the gaming system. I was so overwhelmed with everything. I called my husband, and he starts yelling at me because I let the police in the house and to take Jay. I got an earful about it, and my husband goes to the police station, and it takes a long time for him to come home with Jay. My husband sends Jay to his room and yells at me about how I let this happen. I should have not let them into the house, and I shouldn't have told them Jay was home. I said why. He acts like it was common sense, and I should have found out more information. He then goes on to call me names. The fight turns into me saying, how was I supposed to know how to act? I was taught better than to cover for a criminal. My husband says Jay is not a criminal. I pointed out he was literally just arrested for stealing. My husband told me to get out. I'm staying with my sister and her husband right now because of this. They're just as much in shock as me because they never would have thought to be rude to the police either and not let them in. You're the jerk. In the future, do not talk to the police. Get a lawyer and only talk to them with your lawyer present. You should not have allowed them in without a warrant, and you should not have allowed either yourself or your stepson to talk to them without a lawyer. And you really should not have allowed your stepson to talk to the police without one or the other of his parents there. Just to be clear, Jay was accused of a crime, not convicted of one. So for you to assume he's a criminal automatically would bother me too if that were my son. Plus, you don't know the exact circumstances as to how the console was obtained. His mom could have bought it from a third party for all you know. So again, who are you to call him a criminal when you just made an assumption based off what the police told you? You failed Jay in a big way. Sorry, you're the jerk. You're the jerk. Never, 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 never let the police into your house without a warrant. Never let the police talk to your kid without you or your lawyer. It may only be a simple misunderstanding. The chances of the cops being crooked or planting something to make a case may be slim. But if that slim occurrence should happen and the police decide to ruin your day, you can lose everything you own to civil forfeiture, and your entire reality can come crashing down because you were trying to not be rude. The police are not your friends. You can be civil, but do not let them in the door, because no matter how nice you are still considered a possible perp. Wait, OP is not the jerk for not knowing Reddit's rules of engagement with the police. People acting like everyone knows this. Meanwhile, in the real world, normal people let cops in. Get out of here with all these you're the jerk votes. I agree. I'm from the Netherlands, and I would also let the police in, even offer them tea or coffee. I'm really wondering how the US can be the land of the free with all those reactions. Exactly. I was looking for a comment like this. Belgian here. The police are here to help us. I would let them in, but apparently the US is a completely different story. To all the people saying she's the jerk, basically, you're the jerk. The police didn't randomly show up at her house. They didn't randomly figure the kid had stolen property. They had a reason why. They explained it to her, and she, being a reasonable person, did what was right. Too many people watching too much television thinking that asking for a lawyer will stop the police from doing their job. It doesn't. How many people have lawyers standing by on retainer? And no one is addressing the kid either stole, had stolen property, or both. And the husband is a major jerk. His kid is a criminal, allegedly, but instead of dealing with that, he tosses his wife out. Bad move. She did the right thing. I wonder how many of you would change your views if it was your $1,000 gaming system that was stolen. Can I just say, what the heck? If the police knock on my door in a home that I own where I know I'm following the law, I'm going to let them in, because that's what law-abiding citizens do. If someone living in my home is a thief or a criminal, that's their problem. Don't bring it into my home. OP, you're not the jerk. Your husband and your stepkid are for putting you in a position where they would want you to lie to the police. If you don't want problems with the police, then quit breaking the law. It's not what law-abiding citizens do. It's what naive citizens do. You are not some noble person. You are a fool. Okay, so because I choose to not break the law and I would allow law enforcement in my home, I'm the fool? Okay, buddy, I see your logic. You sure told me. I'm not calling you a fool, but you have a very naive mindset here. Please do some research on this subject. Most people in law enforcement and the judicial system follow the same advice and tell it to their families and friends. Don't talk to the cops without an attorney, period. Doesn't matter what you did or didn't do. Innocent people go to jail every day. Many get wrongly convicted and serve prison time. It can all start with a legitimate mistake or misunderstanding. Doesn't have to be malicious on the cops' part, though it often is. Anything you say can and will be used against you if it will help solve a case. I've seen it play out in a courtroom. It happens every single day. From a game theory standpoint, yes, you are a fool. You have nothing to gain by allowing them in. Absolutely nothing. You don't get a gold star for going along or an X mark for not. There is no citizen scorecard. If they have evidence, they can present it to a judge for a warrant. It's not disrespectful in any way to demand a warrant. If the charges have merit, they can convince a judge. Yes, you are a fool. You're putting faith in someone for no other reason than they're wearing a uniform. I back the blue in most cases, but will absolutely not give one the chance to change my mind. I don't break the law either, but I will always exercise my rights. You are a fool, and a pretentious one at that. Karen demands I drive 12 hours to pick up her son. This morning, as I was getting ready for work, I received a Facebook Messenger message at like 6 a.m. This is from a friend on Facebook. This is someone I went to church with for a few years, about 10 years ago. We are friendly on Facebook, liking and occasionally comment on each other's posts, but I haven't seen this woman in person in 10 years. The message asked me if I could do her a favor. I said I would love to if I was able to. She tells me she's getting custody of her son today. She then proceeds to ask me if I still live in the state that I live in. I said yes. She said that she needs a ride from her hometown to the town I live in back to her hometown, and she needs the ride today. She then asked if she could call me, and I said no, I was almost at work and couldn't talk, but I would keep messaging her. I googled where she told me she lived. It's a 3.5-hour drive to her town. This is the amount of time Google said it would take, not taking into account bathroom breaks, gas fill-ups, traffic, or anything. Straight time, 3.5 hours. So what she needed me to do was drive 3.5 hours to get her, pick her up, drive 3.5 hours to get her son, and then drive her and her son back 3.5 hours. Then I would need to drive myself home the last 3.5 hours. So it would be over a 12-hour day of just driving. And she said that she is short on cash, so she would not be able to chip in for gas or food or anything. I told her that I was very happy about her getting custody of her son, but that I had work today and that there was no way that I could help her today. She then became upset and said, "You told me you would do me a favor," which I went back to the message and I saw that I said, "I would love to if I'm able to." And I told her I was sorry, but that this is last minute and I have work and couldn't miss an entire day, minutes before I was supposed to show up. I don't feel like I'm the jerk in this situation, but the way that she reacted to me telling her I couldn't help makes me feel like I am. Also, I should add that I am almost 3 months pregnant and I have a broken leg. Both of these things I shared on Facebook, and both of these things I know she knew about because she had commented on the posts. So, am I the jerk? Obviously not the jerk. This woman sounds totally off. No wonder she has nobody else to ask. That lady may be short on cash, but she's sure long on nerve. And consider this, she can't get herself from point A to point B without the assistance of a virtual stranger. Are you certain she was granted custody, or was she roping you into custodial interference? Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you help her or not? Please let us know.
I'd screenshot her ridiculous messages and share them on Reddit so everyone can laugh at her.
Am I the jerk for changing the way my mother-in-law looks in my wedding photos? This happened at my wedding. I am very detail-oriented and planned our wedding with my husband very meticulously. Everything was color coordinated and everything was aesthetically pleasing. Our colors were pink and black. I wanted parents and grandparents to also wear our wedding colors so the wedding photos would be cohesive. I specifically spoke with each person and told them the color scheme and how I would very much like everyone to color coordinate. Nobody had an issue with this, so I thought. Both sets of husband's grandparents went out shopping to find clothes to explicitly match our wedding party. I thought that was so cute and appreciated it immensely. My mom and I went shopping for my grandparents because they asked us to, so they were also matching. I offered to take my mother-in-law shopping to pick out something to wear, but she declined and said she would go with her friends. I said okay and kind of forgot about it. The night of the rehearsal, my mom asks my mother-in-law what she's wearing, and she responds with a long dress in the wedding colors. Next day, I'm getting ready in the bridal suite, and my mother-in-law moseys on up and is wearing a royal purple ball gown. She doesn't wear makeup that often, and I was shocked to see she was wearing neon blue eyeshadow and bright pink lipstick. Her husband wore a matching tie. I was livid, but ignored it because I didn't want it to ruin my big day. My father-in-law asked me how he looked during pictures, and I responded, "You and mother-in-law stick out like a big sore purple thumb." He asked what that was supposed to mean, and I told him that they knew the dress code. Now they looked out of place. He said he wore what was given to him, and he would relay the message to my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law approached me later in the night and asked me about my issue. I asked her why she lied about her outfit choice. She said she never bought a dress that would go with our wedding colors and planned on wearing the purple dress she found. It was more true to her, and that's what mattered. I said that's fine. I'll fix the pictures in post-production. She said I would not adjust anything. They paid for the pictures, and I would not alter anything. I said any picture I post with her in it will be altered on my end, so they have no control of what I do. I excused myself and enjoyed the rest of my wedding. My mother-in-law has a habit of trying to make things about her and make little comments like, "Well, I am the mother of the groom. My opinion counts." Or, "I can make decisions too. I'm the mother of the groom and we are helping pay for this wedding." My parents paid for 70% of the wedding. My in-laws paid for the photographer and the rehearsal dinner. The photographer was their friend and only charged them $800 for the whole night. The rehearsal dinner cost $300 because they chose the cheapest options for everything possible. I asked my parents, his parents, my grandparents, and his grandparents to please wear black and pink. All the men wore black tuxes and pink or black ties. The women, minus my mother-in-law, wore black dresses or pink dresses. No other guests had stipulations to their attire except, please wear formal attire. Edit. My father-in-law knew about the color scheme and went along with my mother-in-law's plan because he wanted to prove a point. My mother-in-law went out and purchased the purple dress when she had a beautiful black dress in her closet. I can't stand overly controlled weddings like this because of reasons like this, but it does sound like she did it on purpose to annoy you. So, not the jerk. Not the jerk. Her big eyesore didn't turn out the way she wanted. Those are your photos, not hers. If they didn't intend those photos as a gift, meaning you get free reign, then they should have made that clear way before the wedding. Not the jerk. If it were a simple misunderstanding, I could have given her the benefit of the doubt, but the fact that she straight up lied to you about what she was wearing makes her the jerk 100%. She knew what she was doing, and from the sound of it, she went out of her way to be as ostentatious as possible. This is your wedding, and it's not about her. I don't think asking people to color coordinate is an unreasonable ask at all, but it's like she went out of her way to draw as much attention to herself as possible. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or mother-in-law? Please let us know.
Confession, I've never been to a single wedding in all of my life, and I definitely don't plan to.
Am I the jerk for not acting like a mom to my son? I know this sounds bad, but let me explain a little. I'm 35, female, have a 14-year-old son. I do everything I can for my son and make sure he has everything he needs. Lately, he's been acting out a little at home and school, so I decided to sit him down to try to figure out what was happening. He's my only child, and his dad and I are still together. I tried to sit him down and ask why he was acting out. I was concerned if maybe it had something to do with myself or his father, but he wouldn't budge. I asked him was there any issues going on at school, because if there was, I would be more than happy to help him. I was scared there would be bullying at his school, and I was prepared to transfer him to another school if necessary. He said there was no bullying, and he hadn't had any issues. He just felt like 14-year-olds should act out a little. I told him his behavior was not allowed in my house. His behavior consisted of swearing at myself and his father, at his teacher, and much more. I tried so hard to discipline him as much as possible. So here's where the issue started. After a little fussing with my son, he said, "My life would be better if I didn't have a mother." I was extremely hurt. I said, "Okay," and went on with my day. I prepared dinner for myself and his father, not for my son. When my son smelt the food, he came downstairs and asked where his was. I responded, "I made dinner for myself and your dad. Since life is easier without a mom, there's some heatable food in the freezer." My son went absolutely crazy. He stormed to his room and did not come out until today morning. Normally, I would take him to school, but today I did not. He came downstairs expecting his breakfast that I make for him every morning, but there wasn't any. He said, "Where's my breakfast?" I responded, "Your mother would normally do that for you, but if life is easier without one, you'll need to prepare your own breakfast. Also, take the bus to and from school." After a few swears, he made himself some cereal and took the bus. I suppose my son called his grandmother, my mother-in-law, about this, and I received many calls saying I was a horrible mother, that I'm starving him and being petty. I thought this was a good way to discipline my kid and make him grateful for everything he has. I'm starting to think I messed up. So, am I the jerk? Edit for info. Later today when he gets home from school, I plan on sitting him down to have a conversation that what he said really hurt me. I do not plan to bring up the fact he called my mother-in-law. Edit 2. My son had a half day, so I texted him asking if he would like me to pick him up or the bus. He texted back saying he wanted me to get him, so I did. In the car, he immediately apologized for what he said, and he said that his friends were acting out, so he wanted to fit in. His friends got suspended today for something they did, and they wanted my son to join. My son did not, and he said he was sorry for how he was acting. I also apologized for my actions. Edit 3. I want to say thank you very much for your comments. When my son got home, he cleaned his room and even offered to help with dinner to learn to cook. In only a few hours, our relationship has gotten better and our communication has also gotten better. Not the jerk. It's not like you actually deprived him of anything. He still had access to food and a way to get to school. It was definitely petty, but he wasn't harmed in any way, and maybe sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. OP. I absolutely agree what I was doing was very petty, but I could not think of any other solution. He's not allowed to play on his video games, but I still give him access to his phone because you never know when there will be an emergency. That sounds fair, and I don't think the pettiness is necessarily bad in this situation, as long as you actually talk to him as well. A big sound, not the jerk. I don't think she's being petty. She gave her son exactly what he asked for. At best, to be malicious compliance. I would also call mother-in-law and tell her to stay out of your family's business. Not the jerk. He's 14, he can feed himself. He isn't being kept home from school, he can take the bus. You would be the jerk if you kept this going for weeks, but doing it for a couple of days to help him realize all the things you do for him and appreciate them better is actually a really good life lesson. And it's natural consequences. He doesn't want a mom? You are letting him have his wish. But definitely, after a day or two, you should then have a conversation. But your edit says you are already planning to do that. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her son? Please let us know.
I got suspended in 8th grade for telling my teacher he looked like Snoop Dogg. Everyone in class laughed, but he didn't think it was funny.
My Karen girlfriend demands I pay for her kids' Happy Meals because I earn more than her. I, 32 male, have been dating a fantastic woman for a few months who has multiple kids from a previous relationship. While our relationship is blossoming, we've hit a financial snag that's causing tension. For context, I earn 6 figures while she earns significantly less. I've always held a belief in splitting mutual expenses 50-50, even if there's an income disparity. However, I've been staunch in my stance that I shouldn't contribute to her kids' expenses because we're still in the early stages of our relationship. Here's a recent example. We all went to McDonald's for a quick bite. I covered my meal and she had to pay for herself and all of her kids. She looked a bit embarrassed when one of her kids asked for an additional item and she hesitated, counting her money. While I did offer to buy the extra item, I didn't pitch in for the rest of the meals. She later told me that she felt I could have been more generous given our income differences, especially in front of her kids. I understand where she's coming from, but I believe in personal responsibility. My upbringing taught me the value of money, and I feel that her kids' expenses are her responsibility. So, am I the jerk for sticking to my principles and not helping out financially for her kids during our outings? Edit. She has 4 kids. McDonald's was the kids' idea that she agreed to. The McDonald's meals were nearly $50 just for the kids. We've been together for about 2 months. Edit. I like the girl and I like her kids. They're cool. To those asking if I want to marry her or see a long-term future with her, how should I know? We've only been seeing each other for 2 months. Also, it was not my idea to be involved with her kids this early on. Final edit. Yes, I make 6 figures pre-tax. After taxes, about 40% immediately disappears into my retirement accounts to max them out. After that, another 30% goes to my own rent and utilities. With the remaining 30%, 10% gets saved for charity. The remaining 20% covers my own groceries. I typically cook for myself and my own hobbies. I am not swimming in money. In theory, you're not the jerk. You haven't been dating long and you aren't in a committed long-term relationship. Hopefully, your girlfriend is getting child support from the dad. However, you are the jerk in this example. For goodness sake, it's a Happy Meal. If I saw a stranger struggling to pay for a Happy Meal, I'd pay for it. You're grandstanding on principle, but your real-world behavior makes you a jerk, and likely it will make you an ex-boyfriend. Firstly, the 50-50 rule is mean if one person makes far more than the other, so you might want to read up on equity versus equality. Second, break up. If you're already nickel and diming the kids on a trip to McDonald's with this fantastic woman, you're a cheap jerk who cares more about $50 than about the fantastic woman. And that's fine, you're 100% within your rights. Just recognize that in yourself and cut her loose, because she is never, ever going to be able to do 50-50 with you if she makes that much less and has kids. Better not to waste her time. Imagine making 6 figures and not wanting to cover $50. He's a cheap dude, and no woman would want to be with someone like that. They've only been dating for 2 months, and if he pays now, he's gonna soon pay for everything. I don't understand all the "you're the jerk" comments. It's a 2-month relationship. Why should OP be responsible for feeding her kids when they just started dating? They don't even live together. Just because he earns more doesn't make him responsible for feeding her kids. That's her job as the mother. At worst, I would say everyone sucks here, because the conversation could have happened when the kids asked for McDonald's, where mom could have said she was tight on money. The OP could have offered to pay or suggested something else. But to think that he should have paid because he's the dude, he makes more money than she does, or whatever your convoluted and misguided brains came up with, OP is not ultimately responsible to pay for the kids that belong to his girlfriend of 2 months. I'm going with not the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
2 months and it's already like this?
Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for a former friend's daughter's college? I, 37 male, had a friend, Roy, 37 male, when I was in high school. We were friends for years prior to graduating and remained friends years after. I considered him my best friend. At one point, he had a daughter, May, and I became her godfather at his and his partner's request. At the time, I was still living with a bunch of friends from high school, one of which was my roommate, Taylor, and his brother, Jordan. Roy split with his wife during this time, and since I was his closest friend, I convinced the other guys to let Roy move in. Jordan had never liked me from the get-go and attempted to drive wedges between my friends and I. He did this whenever I wasn't around, and I didn't realize how bad it had gotten until it was too late. He'd make shrewd comments about my girlfriend being out of my league and my career, among other things. And the few people who remained my friends told me in more detail that he lied about me, like saying I had trashed the kitchen when it was really him. And despite them trying to defend me, their words fell on deaf ears. I was unaware, but apparently even Roy believed Jordan. Our lease was ending near this point, and Jordan, Taylor, and Roy had plotted behind my back to kick me out. We lived in a 5-bedroom, and one of our roommates was leaving, but because of Jordan, many of my friends were uncomfortable moving in with me. So they decided to kick me out to bring 2 new people in, informing me about a month before the lease ended. I was betrayed and hurt, most of all by Roy, the person I considered a brother. After I got kicked out, I struggled on my own for a while. I was 24 at the time, and I had a decent job, which is the only reason I made it on my own, even if it was just barely. That career set me up well for my future, to the point that I now live very comfortably, to say the least. Fast forward about 6 years later, and Jordan drunkenly told Taylor and Roy that he had purposely got me kicked out, and that devolved into him spilling his guts about the situation. Turns out that he was jealous of my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and how easy my life looked. Roy and the others attempted to reconcile, and though I tried, it just never felt right. I remained low contact. That brings us to now. May graduated, and they asked me to help pay for her college since I'm her godfather. I refused, based on the events of over 10 years ago now, and the fact that I hadn't been treated like her godfather in over a decade. He, his family, and my mother all seem to think that I'm in the wrong. My wife is upset that they're even asking. I genuinely don't feel like I am, but I'm sick of being pestered by so many. So Reddit, am I the jerk for refusing to pay for her college? Not the jerk. Never heard of a godparent being asked to pay for college, especially when they haven't been involved in the kid's life. Forget them. I'm with your wife here. They have a lot of nerve. Not the jerk. You can tell by the way that they behaved towards you in the past that these people don't like you. They just like the idea of your money. The only way that you would be the jerk would be if you gave in to their BS. Even then, you'd only be the jerk to yourself. My Pokemon Go account was deleted out of spite. First time posting here and in need of dire help. I made my account in 2016, as most of you all did, and only got back into it recently. I've been going hard since then, racking up over 9 million experience. I went from level 27 to 37. I woke up this morning, caught a rare Pokemon, and did some of my morning routine. I came back to see my account banned permanently. I've sent in an appeal already, but how would I go about winning this appeal? I've never spoofed, I've never broken any of the rules, so what gives? Update. A few hours after submitting my post here, I received an email with a confirmation of my account deletion. I immediately responded, trying to cancel this request, but they've yet to respond to me. I'll provide a bit clearer of the story of events that transpired the day before yesterday and today as well. I started seeing a guy about a month ago, as we both played Pokemon Go, and he was seemingly playing as much as me, so we both thought it would be a good match. The day before yesterday, he was fairly upset at me over pursuing a romance in Baldur's Gate 3 and mentioning it to him. I personally thought it was silly, and I wasn't really okay continuing to be with someone who will get upset over computer romances, seeing as I play games like Stardew Valley and Harvest Moon as well, where these are also present. He had asked me to come over, and I said fine. At his house, he apologized to me for acting that way, and also explained that he doesn't want to argue about these things. I thanked him for the apology. We did some trades before bed, as we typically get lucky trades often, and went to sleep. I woke up around 7 a.m. and he was already up and about. I had heard him get out of bed earlier, and he mentioned that he woke up at 6, so it must have been around this time. We're talking a bit, and he shows me that a Pokemon has spawned, so I hop on it myself, and I catch the Pokemon. I then put the phone away to spend some time with him, as he's heading out of town until Thursday, just a few days. Around an hour later at 8:30, I checked Pokemon Go again before I intended on leaving his place. I received a ban notification on my screen saying I've been banned permanently. Now, to me, this is weird. I had not broken any of the rules. I kind of brushed it off thinking it was a mistake. I said, oh well, I'll submit a ban appeal and they'll see that I've done nothing wrong. My partner, though, he was pretty upset about it. I had never seen him cry previous to this, as we have only been together a month, but he burst into tears and explained I'm the only partner who has played Pokemon Go with him. I consoled him, told him it would be okay, it's just a ban and I can fix it, and we both went on our way, him to work and me to my place. I was looking up any possible way that I could have been banned. I was researching all day to see if I might have done something weird or anything, as I've always played cleanly with no assistance, with the exception of that one-time Pokemon Go Plus official accessory. Now here's where it gets odd to me. At 8 p.m. I receive an email confirmation on my account deletion and that it will be processed. That's incredibly strange, as I never submitted anything. I read the full conversation and see there was an account deletion submission at 6:30 a.m. this morning, but I was asleep. I dug a bit deeper and found that the deletion code is generic. This raised some red flags, and I was concerned maybe someone did it out of spite. I looked into this further and checked all my phone activity on an email account set up on my phone, and there it was. At 6:24 a.m., someone had opened my Twitter. I had sent a frustration message to one of my best friends explaining that I don't think this relationship can work out if he will act like this. Now, when I woke up, there was no notification they replied to me. My PC was also off, as I know sometimes Twitter will mark messages as read if you have a Twitter tab open. So this led me to believe the following. My partner read my Twitter notification DM from my friend. He panicked or got angry. He then went through all my messaging apps to check to see if he could find something. My only guess is that he thought Will from Baldur's Gate was a real person, or if I said anything to anyone else. This was done in a matter of a minute per messaging app. He opened my Pokemon Go at 6:29 a.m. and submitted the deletion request, as it can only be done via the app as far as I understand. My Gmail was opened at 6:31 a.m., and this is when the deletion request was received. The emails were deleted and removed from the trash so I would not see them. I only ended up seeing it thanks to the message that I got to confirm my account deletion. I'm not entirely sure how else this could have happened. I have zero history of sleepwalking. I need any and all possible advice here. Is it still possible that the account deletion can be canceled? I cannot entirely confirm it was him. I've directly asked him and he says he wouldn't do this. I'm his main Pokemon Go partner that he plays with. This really sucks. I played Pokemon Go and I cannot tell you guys how much time it takes to get to level 35. It sucks that the customer support really didn't help her at all. Am I the jerk for ditching my sister and making her find her own way to the airport? My sister and my mom are always late. My dad and I prefer to be early, so it drives us nuts. Probably me more than him. She has made me late for countless events over the years. We're currently in another province for my cousin's wedding, and when we booked our flights a month ago, we discussed that I would have to drive everyone to the airport because my sister and mom don't drive, and my dad has a knee condition that makes it a bit painful for him to drive right now. The week before the trip, I started preparing my sister for the fact that I would not tolerate her making us late for the flight. Traveling makes me anxious, and I prefer to allow extra time in case any hiccups arise. Because the airport we were flying out of is incredibly busy, it was suggested that everyone arrive 2 hours prior to departure, and I said I wanted to allow an extra half hour on top of that to be safe. We live over 40 minutes from the airport, and traffic can be unpredictable. This would mean that we would have to leave our house at 10 a.m. On the day of the trip, she was still in bed at 8 a.m., and there was no sign she had packed. I knocked on her bedroom door and said, "Reminder that we're leaving at 10 a.m. I'm not joking. Anyone who's not in the car at 10 is not coming with me." She said she knew, and I'd already told her a million times. Regardless, I repeated this again when she got out of the shower at 9:20. At 9:50, we were putting bags in the car, and she was in the towel doing her hair. I gave her a 10-minute warning and walked out the door. By 9:59, we were in the car in the driveway, and there was no sign of her. My mom called her from the car, and she didn't answer. At 10:01, I started the car, and my mom freaked out, saying there was no way I was actually going to leave her there. Shocker, I did. She called my mom's phone at 10:15, asking where we were, and my mom ranted about how I was being ridiculous and there was nothing she could do. Traffic was a bit heavier than usual, and we ended up getting to the airport 2 hours and 10 minutes before departure, and getting to our gate 25 minutes before boarding. I had time to get a coffee and some snacks, and didn't have to stress that we were going to miss our flight. My sister had to call an Uber and arrived as they were calling us for boarding. Now, a few days later, my mom is still ticked and says I should at least pay my sister back for the Uber. My sister isn't speaking to me except when absolutely necessary, and my dad thinks the situation is pretty funny. I feel like I was justified, but I'm also open to the fact that I might have been a bit of a jerk by leaving her. I was driving my own car that I paid for, and I paid for my own plane ticket, if that matters at all. I have not and do not intend on paying for her Uber. You told her repeatedly. She acknowledged repeatedly. She clearly understood that you'd leave at 10 on the dot. She just didn't believe it. She should have. So, not just not the jerk, but good for you. You treated your sister as an adult. Now she just has to learn to act like one. Not the jerk. And when someone tells you you should wait because that's just how she is, just say, no, that's just how I am. You do want a tip, don't you? At the time, I worked at a restaurant that had a central bar, a restaurant surrounding it, and it had wings on both sides and in the front. To get to the wings required a step up, and there was a set of stairs at both ends of each wing. On the night in question, I was working the wing that had tables 11 through 19. Next to me, down a couple stairs, were the 20s. The couple came in and were seated at table 15, right in the middle of my section. They had an attitude and a chip on their shoulder the size of Texas. From their very first words to me, they were talking to me like they thought they had seen fish with higher IQs. As they placed their order, they described in painful detail what other servers had messed up when they had placed this order at previous visits to this restaurant. The order concluded with the following words: "I hope you paid good attention. You do want a tip, don't you?" My jaw hit the floor. I told them I was going to grab their drinks and ring their order in. Grab their drinks I did. Ring their order in I did not. But I had something else to do with the computer, probably printing off someone else's check, so I did that. I had to take care of other tables, refilling drinks, grabbing sauces, running food out, the usual. But every time I had to get from tables 11 to 14 to tables 16 through 19, I took a detour through the kitchen and came back by way of the 20s. I made sure to never pass table 15. I would never do anything disgusting to anyone's food, but you can bet that it was a good 12 minutes between the time that they gave me their order and the time that I finally saw fit to think about ringing it in. And when it came up in the heated expo window, the expo on duty told me that the order for table 15 was up, and I said I'd get it as soon as I brought drinks out to another table. I went and checked on the rest of my section, but table 15's glasses contained nothing but ice. As I finished up with table 16 and turned to take my detour, I briefly saw table 15 try and wave and grab my attention, but I pretended not to see them. I had to turn really fast so that the illusion was believable and also so they couldn't see me smirking. When I went back into the kitchen the next time, well, if you're a server, you can just look at food and tell that it's been sitting in the expo window for a minute. Table 15's order had definitely acquired that look. Someone shouted, "Hands to 87." So I grabbed the food for table 87 and followed its server out to their section, then went back into the kitchen to refill dressings. As I was walking back from the cooler where I had just put the ranch away, I saw the order for table 15 going out the door after only about 7 minutes in the expo window. I honestly don't know how long I was going to let it sit, but the expo valued her space and made someone else get the food to take it out of her sight. I stopped by table 15 to check on them pleasantly, ask if everything came out all right, and they said that they needed some dressing and a refill on their drinks. I said sure, no problem. As I delivered the only refill of the night, I said, "Oh, you asked for honey mustard. So sorry, I'll go get that right away." By the time they actually got their honey mustard, there wasn't much chicken left to put it on. I spent most of the rest of their meal studiously avoiding passing by their table. I delivered their check with a smile, picked up the card quickly, and delivered it back with a pen for a signature. They had definitely spent more time than they had planned on spending in that restaurant that night, so as soon as they were able to sign the credit slip, they hurried out to wherever they were headed next. The tip written on the credit card slip was 0, and boy, did I earn it. Am I the jerk for using the words weaponized incompetence to describe my wife's behavior? Background: I moved in with my wife back in May. Prior to that, we were long distance for years. When we combined households, I brought my 2 cats. There was some friction at first because she's very much unfamiliar with animals, and her entire childhood she never had so much as a gerbil. But she did warm up to them over time. She still isn't entirely comfortable though, so as a compromise, the house is divided into cat and no cat areas. They're allowed free reign of the basement. They aren't allowed into the bedroom, kitchen, or bathroom, and they're allowed out in the main floor, but only when I'm home to supervise them. So far, this compromise has worked well for us. The incident occurred on my day off. I was still in bed when my wife, who was getting ready for work, she leaves very early, woke me up. One of the cats had escaped into the main room, and she needed me to come get him to put him back downstairs. I've tried to show her how to wrangle cats before, how to pick them up so she's supporting their weight, how to shoo them out of a room, how to use a spray bottle as a deterrent to keep them off furniture, etc. However, she's been reluctant to use any of what I've taught her. So she did none of those things and asked me to help instead. When I asked her why she didn't simply pick him up and put him in the other room, she said she literally couldn't do it. The cat is too heavy. Reddit, this is a 12.8-pound cat who has the sunny disposition of a brainless orange tabby. This is not a Maine Coon, a hefty boy, or a feral tomcat. He will happily let people pick him up and move him. He likes the attention. I expressed disbelief at this. Even a kid or a little old lady would be able to pick him up. It's not difficult, and it's something she needs to be able to do in case this kind of thing happens when I'm away or at work. And here's where I may have been the jerk. I used the words weaponized incompetence. I love my wife dearly, but this isn't an isolated incident with her, and I'm not the only person in her life she's done this with. Having seen a bit of the family dynamic in action, I think she learned from a young age that she can get out of certain tasks by pleading helplessness. Now she's furious with me. Less so for the cat thing, and more so for the use of the words weaponized incompetence. She's also mad at the implication that I don't actually believe her when she says she physically cannot lift a cat. She has no disability or inability that would preclude her from doing this. Not the jerk. I do think she just may have a general fear, so I think this is why she can't lift it. Not because of the weight, but because of being scared to, which is fine. But this is why I say you're not the jerk. I do also believe she's being unreasonable about the situation. Keeping your pets in the basement for the majority of their lives is not a fair compromise. These are living animals that deserve being in the home. Not in the bedroom? Fair. Not on the countertops? Fair. The rest is not, and I think she will slowly build up on that, because she simply is afraid or just doesn't like cats. Who cares if the cat was in the living room? Finish getting ready and leave. The cat isn't going to chase you. This would be a deal breaker for me though. My cats are part of the family. You don't need to pet them, but they deserve to roam freely, within reason, around the house. I think y'all need to have a serious conversation on your living situation before this builds up even worse, because this will only be the beginning. I don't want to see these anymore. No problem. I previously worked at a place where I was hourly but should have been salary. They later made me salary, and had to work odd hours at times due to the demands of the job. Despite the extra time that I worked, I was still expected to be clocked in at 8 and to leave no earlier than 5. All while making sure I got as little overtime as possible because they didn't want to pay overtime. They also expected me to take lunch at a predetermined time, even though it conflicted with the nature of the work I did. Every time I clocked in late, clocked out early, or clocked out for lunch at the wrong time, this was the bulk of the issue, a report was generated from HR and sent to my supervisor. Despite my making the case that it was basically impossible to adhere to these requirements, my supervisor point blank told me, "I don't want to see these anymore," in reference to the report they were waving around in the air about my comings and goings on the time clock. So I said, "Okay, I'll make sure you don't have to see them anymore." I then walked down to HR and informed them that my supervisor was tired of seeing these reports and no longer wanted to see them. I told them verbatim what I was told, and they accepted it without question, as I said it came straight from my supervisor. Surprisingly, they didn't double-check the request at all. They simply stopped sending the reports to my supervisor. To be fair, they were tired of sending the reports and knew the situation was not tenable. After that, things were great. My supervisor was happy and had always been happy with my work. Many months down the road, I spoke with one of my salaried coworkers about it when they remarked that our supervisor hadn't been griping about the reports in a while. So I told them what had transpired. They remarked, "I don't think that's what they meant when they said that." Ultimately, I don't know how they actually meant it. All I know is that I fixed the issue by doing exactly what they said, and everyone was happy after that. My parents, brother, and sister-in-law showed up to Christmas at my house when they knew they weren't welcome. I was trying to keep things to 2 posts, but I realized while compiling everything that part 2 was just too long, so I've divided it into a part 3. For those who commented en masse for me to get cameras, I will, when I can afford it. I'm still in financial recovery from buying a house last year, and as far as I know, good cameras need a decent computer to record to, and I don't have anything more than a 3-year-old laptop that runs Windows 10. Yes, I'm aware of doorbell cameras. That will be the first kind I get. For those who kept saying that I should have just gotten my brother and sister-in-law arrested, the only reason I didn't was because they are parents. Their kids need them, and if Dan was arrested, he'd likely lose his job. And without that, his family has no money. And sister-in-law has a 3-month-old baby right now. Neither of them need to end up in jail. But you don't need jail for revenge. Police can help, yes, but I got payback without filing a police report. Would I be this merciful again? More than likely not, and they know it. I decided to wait on making an account and posting until after the new year, just in case more stuff happened. And it did. As previous readers know, my sister-in-law was making passive-aggressive posts on social media that were obviously directed at me, especially after sister-in-law had her fourth baby in November. She was posting the same repetitive nonsense over and over again. She just found semi-clever ways of rewording it. But she pretty much just kept regurgitating that she was tired of living with my parents, that there isn't enough space, she needs her own house, blah blah blah. I know I sound dismissive, but live through what I have with these people, and you'd be ready to sarcastically play tiny violins in front of them too. They're just that bad. And since I waited until January to make an account, more happened just like I thought. I stated before that I'd invited half the family for a Christmas Eve party at my house, and everyone I invited all came, even though it was a fairly long drive of around 3 to 4 hours for them. But they wanted to come and show me their support. I was praised by them a lot for how hard I'd worked to get a house of my own, and that they were sorry for everything I'd went through. I was asked why I didn't just take my camper and drive the 3 hours back to them instead of living pretty much homeless for so long. And I had to sheepishly admit that I was very attached to living around here, and I had my best employment opportunities in this area. My hometown doesn't have a lot of great job opportunities in my field, if any at all, and I wanted to make my own way as much as I could. An answer that they overall accepted. We moved on to having a rather nice party, the best I'd been in years. Some relatives even brought CDs of great Christmas albums, and I have to say, the one my uncle brought of Ray Charles was my favorite. He sings Christmas songs like no one else I've heard. It was a grand and happy time. I felt like, for once, I could just forget my past issues and enjoy the moment, but I wouldn't be writing this if it had stayed that way. About 2 hours into the party, you know who showed up. My parents, brother, and sister-in-law popped in trying to look all smiles. They didn't even knock, just walked right in through my front door like they were meant to be there. I shut off the music and told them that they needed to leave immediately. They begged to stay and said that they had brought gifts. One of my uncles stood up and yelled at them before I got another chance to speak. And he said that they don't deserve to be in my home or my life after the crap they tried to pull months earlier. And he was backed up by several other relatives. Mind you, this guy is my mother's brother, and he used to love her to pieces until he found out about the crap that went on between me and my parents. My grandparents, mother's parents, as old as they are, hurriedly got in between us and said to my parents that if they want to make amends with me, it's far too soon. And they've never been more disappointed in them than they were this past year. They had hidden their favoritism for my brother from prying eyes for a long time, but no one was fooled anymore, and they needed to make a serious effort to try and actually treat me like a son if they ever wanted to be in my life again. Then they turned to Dan and sister-in-law and said they've seen the repetitive nonsense sister-in-law keeps posting about. They're tired of it and to just let it go already. My house will not become their new home. Sister-in-law went back to her old standard of crying and had a pity party about how she should be the one living in this house and not me. She plopped down in a chair to have a tantrum and say it wasn't fair I got this house to myself when I have no family of my own and she has 4 kids that need more space, and she just wanted a better place to live in and feel like a real mom. It was petty of me, but I loudly pointed out that she sucks as a mother because she lets my mother do most of the parenting while she sits on her butt all day drinking, playing on her phone, or going out and spending all of Dan's money. And she has the nerve to complain about it. I even joked that I'm surprised her baby doesn't get drunk from drinking her milk since she drinks so much booze, which I admit went a bit too far because I got some stares. And sister-in-law demanded to know if I was calling her a bad mom. I said the evidence speaks for itself, and if she wanted to be able to afford to move out of my parents' house someday, then she needs to put her college degree to some use, get a job, and learn to save money. My mother already does most of the childcare for my brother's kids anyway, so she'd have plenty of time after her baby gets a little older. My brother's eldest kid, who's 7, ran up and started kicking and screaming at me for yelling at his mom, and he kept going off on me about how his mom said that I was the bad guy who made her cry and didn't let them live here. That's when my brother grabbed his son to pull him away, but all the other relatives jumped back in, and this sort of turned into a family intervention against my sister-in-law and brother. She was crying, her new baby was crying, her kids were crying. Heck, even Dan was very nearly in tears from the verbal lashing he was being assaulted with. He ended up just sitting on the ottoman I keep shoes in by the front door and looking like a complete wreck. He couldn't look anyone in the eye. He couldn't even say 2 words to me. Not with a whole house filled with angry people ready to judge him if he tried to let out his inner golden child again. If they weren't there to get in his way, I'd bet this would have ended up a repeat of when he tried to order me around and tried to take my house months earlier. By this point, though, he had been so thoroughly humiliated that his and my parents' reputation in the family was completely destroyed because the masks were all off now. Soon after, my parents, brother, and sister-in-law all left in defeat. The party resumed, and we all avoided speaking of what just happened for the rest of the evening. Since most of the adults had been drinking, everyone stayed the night in my house. I even let some of them sleep in the camper so there'd be enough space. I admit, it also makes a good guest house. My relatives all wanted a tour of it earlier as well, and they said they couldn't believe I'd been living in it for around 2 years. I got a lot of questions about it, like what summer and winter was like, and so on. I was up earlier than anyone else Christmas morning and had a fresh pot of coffee and some ibuprofen for those spiked eggnog hangovers a few of them had. I was complimented on being a way nicer host than my parents ever were, and we all agreed to do this again next Christmas. After Christmas, sister-in-law did finally stop making posts that were obviously digs at me and deleted all of the old ones as well. But shortly after the new year, she more recently made a new post complaining about how she had tried to convince my parents to get her a camper like I did, so it could be set up in the backyard so Dan and his family could use the whole house as their family home. Well, a taste of one's own medicine is never fun, because my parents turned that idea down, vehemently I hear. No one is going to push them out of their own home, let alone their master bedroom. The post was only up for a couple of days before sister-in-law removed it, and she has hardly posted anything since then. She loves to complain, but if a tree falls and no one is around to hear it, can it still complain? Sister-in-law, I guess, has realized there's no point in doing it when no one hears her anymore, and Dan can't afford to move his family out on his salary alone anytime soon. If they end up expecting another kid in the next few years, I won't be surprised. Things mellowed down for me since then, and I've even invited friends over for a poker night. I suck at poker because I can never remember a darn thing about it. But so what? We get to drink beer and eat junk food while being merry idiots. We all loaded up on Whoppers from Burger King and just had at it the best way 4 grown men can when they just want to have a good unadulterated time and get drunk. I think maybe around summer I'll look into possibly dating someone. I'm not exactly getting younger here. Fingers crossed that goes well. My camper just sits idle in my yard now, and I admit, there were some times I went out there just to spend time in it. I did live in it for 2 years. It's like my second home, and maybe one day I'll actually get to use it for camping like it was meant to be. I've never been camping. My parents considered it a waste of time, so it'd be completely a new experience for me. This pretty much marks the end of what happened. My parents, brother, and sister-in-law have all been staying very clear of me. In fact, they seem to have gone back to acting like I don't exist, like they did before I bought a house. Not like that bothers me at all. It's better that way. But they'll inevitably come back in some way. I know they will. I just wonder what kind of stupid thing they'll do next. If anything notable like all of this ever happens again, I'll make another post if this account is still active.
I hope OP can have a movie made about his life. Can you imagine how good it would be?
My Karen wife is demanding my daughter's college fund be given to her son. I, 39 male, am a father to my daughter who's 18. Let's call her Emma. My first wife and I were middle school sweethearts. Emma was a happy accident and we were thrilled to be parents to her, but my wife passed while giving birth to her. I had just graduated and started a job, and I failed to juggle a kid in the career. So I remarried in a year and a half to my second wife, who's 42. Let's call her Sam. She was also struggling raising her son, Tom, due to financial difficulties. It was a marriage of convenience, and we were very open about that. She would be stay-at-home raising both kids, while I would provide financially for them. There were ups and downs along the road, but we made it work. Sam always gave her son preferential treatment, as in emotionally, which I never took issue with. After all, she was my daughter and not hers. But I always provided equally for both of them, because I always felt obligated to be fair with both of them. There were not any major issues growing up. Both kids maintained a healthy relationship with each other while maintaining a bit of distance. Both care for each other, and we never asked for more. My first wife and I both had an insurance policy. It was paid out when she passed. For some reason, we once randomly talked about what we would do with the money if one of us had passed. We both decided it would go to our kids, and if we didn't have a kid, then the surviving spouse should travel the world. I've kept that money in a trust that has grown over the age of 17 years and has been yielding significant profits, and now it's quite a bit of money. I've never borrowed even a penny from it because it belongs to my daughter and I'm just the guardian. This year, both kids applied to college, and Emma got into an Ivy League school with a full scholarship. Our plan was if Emma did not get the scholarship, I would pay her tuition with the trust. Tom also applied for Ivy League and got admission, but no scholarship. He and I both discussed our options, and I told her that while I can help him with living expenses while he pursues his studies, I can't afford the tuition without getting a massive hit. He was understanding, and he said that he'll take out a loan for it. It was settled then, or at least I thought it was. One night, Sam asked me if I can pay her son's tuition with the payout. She knows the width of that policy. I was startled for a second, but I said I would think about it. I delayed it because I wanted to ask Emma whether she wanted to help Tom out, because I've always let her make decisions on her own, as I feel it's the important part of parenting. I wanted to ask her alone without Sam present because Sam can be quite a bit pushy, and I wanted Emma to make a decision on her own without any pressure because she's the sweetest kid who would rather be hurt than hurt anyone else. I explained the whole thing to my daughter, and I asked what she wants to do. She asked me what I think she should do, and I told her that I have no opinion, but no matter what decision she makes, it will not change anything between us. She will always be my world. She told me that she wanted to travel the world with me, as her mom wanted, with half of the money, and invest the rest so she can have extra cash flow. She asked me for the weekend to think about it, which I was happy to give her. On the weekend, she texted me to come into her room. She asked me to explain the profit yields, the amount, and everything related to the amount, which I did. After contemplating, she decided that she can pay for half of Tom's tuition while touring the world and maintaining healthy cash flow. I stressed on her that if she doesn't want to do it, she doesn't have to. Tom is not her responsibility, but she said she wanted to help out her brother. During a family meeting, she told this to Tom in front of Sam and I. Tom teared up and hugged her, and he was very grateful. I noticed Sam was a bit off, but I ignored it. We all went out for dinner. In bed, Sam asked me who decided about Tom's tuition. I told her about the whole situation. Sam was shocked for whatever reason. She said that I didn't have to ask Emma, and I could have made the decision on my own, as it wasn't Emma's money. I told her in plain words that she does not get a say in that, since it was decided between me and Emma's mother what we would do with the money. Then she said, why didn't I involve her during the discussions with Emma? And by this time, I was on the edge, and I told her because it was none of her darn business. She said that she would talk to Emma, and Emma can pay for her brother's full tuition, and traveling the world is not necessary. I calmly, yet firmly told her that she would not say a word to Emma about this, and the matter is closed. After a week, I was out with my colleagues when I received a text from Tom that I should come home immediately. I rushed home. I was there in 10 minutes. Sam was shouting at Emma how she should pay for Tom's tuition, and Emma was crying. Tom was trying to calm his mother down and to get her to shut up, but to no avail. I told her to stop and go to her bedroom as politely as I could because I didn't want to insult her in front of Tom, because after all, she is his mother. I picked Emma up and was taking her to her room when I heard Sam yell,
You were always a monster. You ended your mother while coming into this world.
And this was the end point. I told Sam that I'm going out and I will come back in 2 days, and she better be gone when I get back. I took Emma with me and asked Tom if he wanted to come with us. Tom was reluctant, but eventually came with us. I drove them to nearby Hilltown and got us checked in. Emma was crying all the way, and I just let her after a few initial tries to calm her down. The next morning when we had breakfast, Emma had still been crying, and Tom basically got on his knees and apologized for his mother's behavior. Emma told him that it wasn't his fault. We three had a heart-to-heart discussion once Emma and I had talked in privacy, where Emma was reassured that she wasn't responsible for anything. Emma will still be paying half of Tom's tuition. I also talked to Tom and told him that I would be divorcing his mother, and there's no turning back from that. But that doesn't have to change my relationship with him unless he thinks otherwise. He asked me to consider my decision, and I asked him if what I was doing was unfair. He said no, and he understood. By the time we got home, my parents were already there and Sam was gone. My parents asked about what had happened, and apparently, Sam had only fed them half the story, and I told them the whole thing. They were furious, but tried to lower the temperature and asked if there was any way to make amends. I told them that my decision is final. I've served Sam with papers with a fair amount of alimony, along with a one-bedroom apartment since she made our home while I worked, despite the prenup, which eliminated any prospects of alimony or division of assets. In the meantime, our relatives and friends have been asking me to reconsider it. While they do not condone what happened, they want me to make space for her. Sam also reached out to Emma and apologized for her behavior. Emma asked me to reconsider my decision as she has forgiven Sam and feels like there won't be any friction since she has already left for college. I am not willing to roll back because whatever affection I had for Sam is gone. I don't think it will ever be the same if we get back together, and there's no changing this lack of feelings for her. So I'm asking objective and impartial Redditors for any advice on what to do here. Yikes! A few things stick out to me. Marriage of convenience? Sam didn't really have a bond with Emma. Sam always favored her son. Sam thinking Emma had no say over her inheritance. How Sam berated Emma despite her generous offer to pay for half of an Ivy League school. Then the topper, what Sam said about her mom. Some things can never be taken back. Sam doesn't seem like a very caring person. I think you're doing the right thing and very generous offering alimony. After what Sam said to your daughter, I would divorce her. Seriously, you're your daughter's only living parent. She relies on you to defend her in all things. Sam showed her true colors over money that wasn't even hers. Let her go. You don't need that in your and Emma's life. I'm going to jail in 7 hours. What's something I should do before I go? It's only for a month, but I feel like there's something I'm not remembering. I've unplugged appliances and such, done my laundry and cleaned up. I took the trash out, made sure my bills are good until I'm out. No food that's gonna expire while I'm gone. Is there anything simple that I may have forgotten? Update. Hi everyone, I'm back. I'll do a detailed update after work, but overall it was boring. I have plenty more to share, but all in all, 2 out of 10, don't recommend. I'll start off by saying jail is not very fun, that's for sure. So after I made this post, before it blew up, I did a last check of my apartment, made sure my bills were good, and I got someone to check on my place. My sister came by and picked me up around noon. We did some fun things and went to watch Across the Spider-Verse, which was really good. After that, we hit up the Wendy's by the jail for my proverbial last supper. Honestly, I was very anxious, so I had to pretty much force myself to eat it, but I'm glad I did. I turned myself in at exactly 6 p.m. to the jail. Initially, they didn't even know I was supposed to show up, but they got that squared away pretty quickly. First, they had me sign some paperwork and get a little medical checkup, just vitals and some questions. Next, they had me take a shower. They gave me some anti-lice shampoo that made my scalp and body incredibly cold. Next, they gave me my jail clothes and had me go through a full body scan to make sure I wasn't carrying anything I shouldn't be. They give orange jumpsuits to inmates who have been arrested but are waiting court, gray to inmates who have been sentenced, me, and white clothes to the workers. Workers have their clothes and towels changed out every day, while everyone else got them switched on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. They also gave us new clothes on Sundays. After I was dressed and clean enough, they sent me back to the intake dorm, so to speak. This was a room with 24 cells in it, 12 on top, 12 on bottom. There was a common area with 6 tables and a TV, as well as a pull-up bar that you could also do dips on. This specific jail doesn't have outside recreation time anymore because the state says a pull-up bar is enough to count as recreation time. So basically, I was inside a room with nearly no windows for my sentence. My cell here was about 12 feet long and 7 feet wide. It had a sink, toilet, and a desk in it. The bed was a metal rack with about an inch of foam to lay on. We didn't get pillows, but we got 2 sheets and a wool blanket that was very itchy. I used the wool blanket as my pillow and covered up with a sheet, while using the other sheet to act as a barrier between me and the foam. Luckily for me, I'm a very warm sleeper because the jail was kept very cold at all times. Since the intake dorm is a medium security block, we had it locked down in our cells from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. as well as 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day. At 6 a.m. sharp, they turn all the lights on and announce, "Head count," on the speaker. This means I had to get out of my bed and go stand by the cell door while the guards came around and made sure that no one escaped overnight. If you didn't get out of bed, they locked you in your cell for 24 hours until the next morning. After that, I would lay back down and try to sleep until breakfast came at 7. Breakfast was generally cereal with milk, peanut butter with toast, and either apple or orange juice. The food menu was the same every week. After breakfast, I always went back to my cell to lay down and try to get some more sleep, but the intake dorm was incredibly loud. People couldn't seem to have a conversation without yelling. People were playing dominoes and cards from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., slapping them on the table. No one had any respect for other people, basically because it's a bunch of literal criminals who just got to jail. Not to mention how bright the lights were. What I'm saying is, there wasn't many nap opportunities in that block. Since I couldn't sleep much, I read my books. Library was every Wednesday morning. Luckily, my first morning there could check out 4 books. Brushed up on my spades, learned how to play tonk, played a bit of poker too. I played some chess and lost a game to an old man. I was thinking all day about how bad I wanted to play him again, only for him to get released right after dinner. I still want that rematch, Randy. Sometime before lunch, I would shower. In this dorm, there were 2 separate single-person showers. They were very small and way too hot. Don't even think about stepping foot in there without your sandals on. Also, don't touch the walls or the curtain. Basically, don't touch anything but the button that makes the water come out. The showers were nastier than any shower I've had to use in my many years playing hockey. Now, I went in on a Tuesday night and immediately put in a commissary order of shampoo, conditioner, soap, toothpaste, some ramen, candy. You get it, the essentials. I got all of that on Thursday morning, which was nice, until I realized I forgot to buy deodorant. Yay. I'm very serious about my personal hygiene, and commissary didn't come again until the next Tuesday, so that was a rough week for me. Honestly, it didn't make much of a difference since half of the people in there didn't shower or brush their teeth at all, making the dorm smell unique, to put it lightly. The toothbrush they give to the inmates is a grand total of 2 inches long, which wasn't very effective. The reason is so no weapons can be made with it. But they also gave us a very long spoon that could be used to hurt someone, so I call BS. Anyway, after all that, lunch came around noon. We would eat and lounge about some more until 1 p.m. when they locked us in our cells. From 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. it was generally pretty quiet since everyone was in their own space, so naturally I slept as much as I could, because why would I want to be conscious in jail when I don't have to be? When 3 p.m. came around, they did head count again, and again, if you weren't fully dressed by your cell door, they would lock you in your cell for 24 hours. I never had this happen, but I sure witnessed it happening plenty. Usually it was because someone was withdrawing or something, and they were understandably depressed about being incarcerated. After that, we would do the same crap, just waiting around until more food came. Dinner was sometime between 5:30 and 6. I guess I'll post the food menu here since you're all wanting to know. I'll preface by saying that the county jail that I went to has a reputation, unbeknownst to me, for actually having good food compared to other jails in my state. I would compare it to the school lunches I got in high school. Not amazing, but it was edible, and for that, I feel lucky. So here's the menu. Monday, breakfast, sausage and cheese McMuffin, delicious. Hash brown, juice, milk. Lunch, mac and cheese, not bad. Either cucumber salad or zucchini and milk. Dinner, sloppy joe with a biscuit, peas and carrots, bread and butter. And each day of the week we had different things on the menu. Some of them were pretty good, but some of them weren't very good at all. All of the meat was turkey or chicken. After dinner, we did a whole lot of nothing until 9 p.m. when they locked us down. My block actually had one inmate who was waiting to be sentenced on an arson charge and who was considered dangerous, so he wasn't allowed around other inmates and was on 23-hour lockdown. His 1 hour of free time was from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. when we were all locked in our cells, and this guy was crazy. Anyway, at 10 p.m. they turned the lights off, but it never actually gets dark in jail. This posed a problem for me because I have serious trouble falling asleep as it is, so I would read until I got sleepy enough, then use my shirt to cover my eyes and doze off. Usually I was pretty hungry at bedtime, so I would eat a ramen before I brushed my teeth. There wasn't a microwave in the intake dorm, so I would fill my bowl of noodles with warm water until the noodles get soft. Then I would dump that water out and put new warm water in and mix in the seasoning. The cell's sink water only got to about 100 degrees, so it wasn't very good, but it was food, so I'm not complaining. The food they served us was good enough, but there was never very much of it, so I had to make do with what I had. For reference, I'm 5'11" and about 165 pounds. I've always been active and have a physically engaging job, so I eat a bit more and burn more calories. I would end up falling asleep sometime around 1 or 2 a.m. most days until 6 a.m. when it started all over again. After a week in there, they finally moved me back to the minimum security dorm. This was a room about the size of a gymnasium with much lower ceilings. There were a total of 78 beds, 19 bunk beds on the back wall, with 2 rows of 20 single beds just in front of them. There was a communal bathroom with 3 urinals, 3 toilets, and cleaner to use before every movement, and 6 shower heads. Despite the 6 showers, we could only use 1 at a time, apparently with the exception of the guy who just hopped in there with me for a few minutes, cleaned, and went about his day. There was a guard desk with a guard there 24/7. 95% of the time, the guards were scrolling TikTok or playing online poker, paying no attention to the inmates, and even less attention to the showers that were 25 feet away from us. The other 5%, they would walk from bunk to bunk looking for stashes of fruit or unmade beds. We had a couple shakedowns where they tear the whole place up looking for contraband. Nothing really came of them though. The intake dorm also had a vending machine stocked with ramen, candy, other sweets like honey buns and cinnamon rolls and things of that nature. Soda, coffee, sugar, you get the idea. A commissary to go machine, if you will. Everything from the vending machines was also less expensive. $1 for ramen instead of $1.40. There were also 2 microwaves and 2 TVs. One TV always had ESPN or some other sports channel, the other on a movie or show. The minimum dorm also didn't lock down from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. and didn't lock down at night until 10 p.m. So while you sacrificed your privacy, the microwave and vending machine were too good to pass up, so everyone stayed in there. Oh, also the cot you slept on was actually somewhat comfortable, as much as foam on a metal rack can be, I guess. All of the workers stayed here as well as most non-violent offenders who weren't a nuisance. There were a couple of fights in here though, and the people involved got immediately sent to the hole. Yes, it's a real thing. Basically a cell with no TV, no other people, no commissary. Basically nothing at all but your thoughts and the occasional tray of food to tell you what time it is. I luckily did not have to check it out for myself. The days went by the same way in minimum, except I didn't get a nap from 1 to 3 p.m., so I got even less sleep in there. I did, however, get to read more books, so it wasn't all that bad. The only things to do were sleep, eat, read, play cards, maybe a little chess if you're feeling froggy that day, or sit on a metal seat and watch TV. The seats were unbearable for more than an hour. A lot of people also walked laps or did pull-ups on their machine that was supposed to be our recreational area. Did I mention we weren't allowed outside? Yeah, I'm still a bit salty about that, so I'll say it again. There were phones in each dorm to use. After your one free call, using the phone cost 21 cents per minute, which is expensive, so I used it sparingly. There was one guy who was arrested on some crazy drug charges in there, awaiting his trial. He used the phone for 8 hours a day, I'm not exaggerating. He also didn't speak any English and would sometimes start screaming into the phone. He actually got sent back to the secure dorms because he missed head count, because he was on the phone. I feel like there's a lot I'm missing, and it'll all come to me later. But for now, I'll wrap it up. Jail is not a fun place to be, never has been, never will be. That said, I deserved it and I did the time. Lastly, stay positive. Life is too short to spend it any other way. For those wondering what he did, based on his post history, it was drunk driving. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive to my wife's monthly family get-together? My wife, 33 female, and I, 35 male, have been married for 3 years. Her family is very tight-knit, and every month they have a family get-together at my wife's parents' house. It's always on Sundays because my wife's siblings have kids, and they all have activities on Saturdays, so Sunday is the only free day everyone has. They live a 3-hour drive from us. We always make it a day trip because obviously we have to work on Monday. Needless to say, it's a lot of driving in one day. The get-together is usually just a nice meal and some games, nothing too fancy or crazy. I like her family and enjoy hanging out with them, but there have been times when I don't feel like going, and there's no hard feelings about not attending. The problem is that if I don't attend, my wife doesn't attend. She's a very anxious driver, especially on freeways and highways where aggressive drivers and semi-trucks tend to be more common. She's never been in an accident or anything like that. She just doesn't feel comfortable driving long distances on freeways with speeding cars. It really freaks her out. So if I don't go, she won't drive herself there. There also isn't anyone else from her family that lives nearby that could pick her up without adding at least 2 hours to their drive. Last month, we didn't attend because I had just gotten back from a work trip and I wanted to use that weekend to relax at home. My wife and in-laws understood. This month's get-together is coming up Sunday. My wife is adamant that we attend this one because we missed the last one. I told her I'll go, but she's going to have to drive at least one leg of the trip. I don't want to be driving for 6 hours like every other time. This started a fight because she said I know how much she hates driving on freeways, and that's too far of a drive for her to keep from freaking out. I told her that if she wants to keep driving 6 hours in a day to see her family every month, then she's going to need to start driving at least half of it because I'm tired of doing all that driving myself. I told her that I'll be with her in the car and will be a good co-pilot to keep her calm and focused, unlike when I drive and she buries her face in her phone for 2/3 of the drive. I told her we can take it slow and easy and it will be good practice for her to become more comfortable with that type of driving. She's not agreeing to this and is insisting that I drive like every other time because of her anxiety about it. I'm refusing to budge and told her that this is something for her family, so she needs to start putting in at least some effort to make it happen. She thinks I'm being a jerk about it and not taking her feelings into consideration and being dismissive of her anxiety. We've not come to an argument on this yet, but I really don't want to give in. Driving 6 hours in a day can be exhausting, and I'm tired of being the only one to do it, especially when it's every month. Not the jerk. Honestly, I think you're approaching it very fairly. 6 hours of driving is definitely a lot. It's not fair for her to expect you to bear that entire burden every time to visit her family without driving at least part of the distance, and you pointing out that you'll be there supporting her as a co-pilot is the right approach. I can understand how anxiety makes driving scary and hard for some people, but also, it's really not fair to expect you to be the only one making the sacrifice here. That said, have you guys considered maybe going on Saturday, even if most of the family isn't available, and just entertaining yourselves that day or visiting with the family that aren't busy? It might make for a more relaxing experience for both of you if you're not cramming the driving into a single day. It might depend on if her family has a place to put you up, or if you can get a hotel or Airbnb nearby, but still an option. OP. My wife has actually suggested going there on Saturdays before, but honestly, I don't want to sacrifice my entire weekend every month to see her family. One Sunday a month, fine, that's doable, because at least I can have Saturday to do something I want to do. But the entire weekend every month is too much. Am I the jerk if I asked my girlfriend to put on some makeup for a party? So just typing out that title, it sounds terrible. I love my girlfriend. I love the way she looks. I love her humor, everything. We've been dating since college and we're now almost 30. It hurt to type almost 30. I was invited to a birthday party by some new friends recently, and they asked me if my girlfriend was coming. I always talk about her and hype her up, so they were all excited to meet her. The day of the party comes and she looks amazing. She had some nice jeans on and a cute crop top. I noticed she wasn't wearing any makeup, so I asked her if she was going to put some on. She took this terribly and made it sound like I was making her out as some sort of trophy. Keep in mind, I never asked this from her. When we go out on dates, I could care less what she looks like. It's also not like she never wears makeup. Whenever she goes out with the girls, she always uses it. At least for me, if I were being introduced to some friends of my girlfriend, I would try to look my absolute best for her. I want to look as good as I can to make her look good as well. We're practically married at this point, and I see her as an extension of myself and vice versa. I also understand I have no say or control in what she wants to do or wear, so I most likely am the jerk for even asking it. Give it to me straight. Am I the jerk? Edit. Very clear I'm the jerk. I won't make that mistake again. Info. Do you put on makeup when you meet her friends? You said you want to look your absolute best after all. You're the jerk. I don't even know where to begin. She's not a show pony. It's not her job to look hot for your friends. You're the jerk. It's funny how you try to deny treating her like a trophy and then sit there and explain how you want to treat her like a trophy and how you wouldn't have a problem with it if the tables were flipped. She isn't a fancy toy to show off. She's her own individual. Who the heck are your friends, and why should she be all that concerned about impressing them? Practically married still isn't married. It isn't even a thing. Even if you were married, that still wouldn't excuse your behavior or mindset. Maybe it's because I'm not from America, so could be culture differences, but I feel like you guys just look for reasons to be upset with your boyfriends or husbands. If my husband made such a simple request of me, I would do it. I respect him and appreciate all he does for me. 5 minutes of putting on makeup to make him happy would not be a problem. And let's be honest, we all know we look better with makeup. Why do you think they always do makeup for films and shows? I also know that if I asked a simple request of my husband, like putting on a nicer shirt or style his hair in a way I like, he would do it and not be upset or feel offended. When I was younger, I wondered why so many American men moved to my country and married my people instead of their own. But Reddit has shown me why that is. Edit. Yes, I am from the Philippines, but no, I would not blindly do anything my husband asks of me just because we're married. If he asked me to jump off a bridge, I would tell him you first, but something that takes 5 minutes, no problem, babe. It is no wonder your marriage rates are declining along with your birth rates. You always find a reason to paint yourselves as the victim, and anyone who does that is exhausting, whether they are a man or a woman. Also, to the foolish person who said my husband probably mistreats me, you have no clue what you're talking about. In my country, we still have God. Your country is the one where God is no longer followed, and that's why you have most of the problems you do. My heart honestly breaks for you and your families, and I hope you all one day heal from the bitterness that has consumed you.
Oh, you know Reddit's not gonna be happy about her.
What would you do if I asked you to put on makeup, Karen?
You'd need a new head.
Company said all bonuses would be even, so I complied. I used to work at a bank. I won't name it, but I'm sure you guys won't have a problem guessing which bank it is. Anyways, my position was banker, and as a banker anywhere, you're paid bonus based on how well you do. The more bank accounts, credit cards, and personal loans you write out, the higher your bonus. For context, I've always been hardworking and dedicated to my job, especially at this job, because it was my first big girl job, and I was the youngest banker, 19 years old at the time, in my branch. I mainly felt like I had something to prove. So on average, I would try to do my best at my job. I wasn't lazy like a lot of people I worked with, and I wasn't afraid to learn how to do new things. For example, opening trust accounts or business accounts, etc. Now, a lot of things happened with this bank. It was getting sued left and right because some bankers were starting bank accounts without customers' consent. For the record, I never did this, but I did experience the intense pressure from my boss to sell, sell, sell. To give you an example of the pressure, if a certain amount of accounts goal wasn't hit, my boss would have a one-on-one every time it happened a little before the workday would end and say, "What did you do today to try to help you reach your goal? Why didn't you reach your goal? What will you do different tomorrow?" So you pretty much leave the bank that day feeling like crap. Anyways, once the lawsuit went public, the bank wanted to do some bonus changes to say it's changing its bank culture and blah blah blah. They changed it a couple times. The first was where goals weren't as high, but still based on individual sales. And then finally they decided to change it to where everyone in one branch would receive the same amount. The day we got the news about the bonus, my boss was super corporate about it and read the letter in bank terminology. So literally everyone in that meeting wasn't grasping the concept. So I raised my hand just to make sure I understood, and I asked, "Okay, so what you're saying is if I open 9 accounts and my coworker opens 2 at the end of the quarter, we're going to get paid the same?" She responded, "Yes." So I smirked and said, "Okay, just making sure I understand." Later that same day, I got asked to my boss's office and got in trouble because of having a negative attitude at the meeting. I told her I was simply making sure everyone understood what she was saying, to which she said that next time I should talk to her in private if I needed to clarify. What a jerk. Needless to say, from that day on, I never really tried as much. I mean, my bonus was just as much as the laziest person there, so what was in it for me to really try? I got talked to about it a couple times, but my response was always, "I'm doing just as well as everyone else," and it would end at that. I ended up leaving that job not too long after that, and I gotta say, I'm much happier for it. Excuse me? You want me to wash the windows? This happened more than 3 decades ago, when I was at the beginning of my working career. As a youth, I didn't really know upwards from downwards, and I was just happy that I had a steady job and a salary. The job itself didn't matter, as long as I had a job, I was happy. I was an operator of the production machine, which didn't really need higher education to operate, but it required a person to watch over it in case of some production hiccup or another error happened. Most of the machines ran just fine, and the operator's job was to put in materials or parts into it every now and then and to watch over it, and that was what I did. All in all, a very simple entry-level job. Then one day, one of my coworkers came up to me and told me that our manager required me to wash the windows of the factory today. I was kind of dumbfounded for a moment, and then I joked and told him, "Sure." At first, I thought it was a joke. I told him that I have to watch over my own work here, so was he sure about this? He told me that yes, that's what he was told to tell me. Well, I didn't quite believe what I had heard, and next lunch break, I went to look for the manager and asked if it was so. The manager told me that the windows are dirty and haven't been washed for years, so it's time to clean them, and that I should start right away. I was just like, "Oh, okay." He was naturally being cheap since he didn't want to hire some outsider to do it, and wanted to use me as a youngster to do the extra work. I went back to my work spot, thought a little bit on what to do and where to start, where to get the equipment, etc. Then I turned the machine I was operating off and began to work with the windows. The factory, while it wasn't too large, it wasn't small either, and some of the windows were pretty high up, so it wasn't quick work either at cases. But I was told what to do, and so I complied. My estimate was that it would take several days, if not the whole week, to finish the job. After the second day, someone noticed the parts were beginning to pile up at my spot, which was, of course, because there was no one there doing the process and the machine was offline. On the third day, someone found me washing the windows at one corner of the factory and asked what I was doing. Everyone was worried where I was and why the production line had stalled up since no one was operating the machine where I was supposed to be. They practically pulled me back to the manager and told him what had happened. I explained that I had been doing what I was told earlier and I was about halfway done, and that I can't be in two places at once. There were other managers present as well, and they all turned to look at the guy who had instructed me in the first place. We workers were told to leave, and I was told to go to my original job and start up my machine ASAP, and that if I want, I can do as much overtime as I want until the production quota has been reached. I believe they had some discussion among the managers behind the closed doors after we left. It took me a while, but I got a nice overtime bonus from that in the end. They also hired someone to wash the rest of the windows as well. My Karen wife is refusing to help with our baby. She has been evaluated for PPD multiple times by multiple doctors, and she does not have it. I, 28 male, have been with my wife, who's 29, for 7 years. I love her with all my heart, but I'm really upset with her right now. A little over a year ago, my wife announced that she was pregnant. I'm not going to lie, I was jumping for joy at the idea of being a father. She was on the pill, and to my knowledge took it perfectly, but I guess we fell into that 1% where birth control fails. I suggested not having it, but she wanted to keep the baby, so we went through with the pregnancy. My whole view has changed now that my son, who's 5 months old, is here. All of my worries and apprehensions melted away the first time I held him. However, I realized very quickly that my wife was not doing her share of childcare. We both work from home, but I'm the only one who gets up when he's crying to feed, change, or soothe him. She didn't want to naturally feed him, which is totally fine, but she has only fed him a handful of times in the past 5 months. She refuses to get up at night, so all of his nighttime care is on me. I can count on one hand the amount of diapers she's changed. I was lenient at first because I understand birth is very taxing on the body and can be traumatic, but I have seen no improvement in the past 5 months despite talking to her multiple times and telling her I need help. I'm exhausted. When I bring it up, she says she'll try harder, but she never does. Obviously, PPD and other such mental health issues were an immediate concern, but all of the doctors we went to said she doesn't fit the criteria. She loves our son, cuddles him and plays with him, but doesn't do any of the hard work like feeding and diaper changes. She's not gotten up at night a single time. I reached the end of my rope yesterday when my son would not stop crying. I was doing my best to soothe him, and my wife had the audacity to look up from the TV and complain that he was being too loud and to take him in another room. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I yelled at her and told her she's being a horrible mother. She was deeply upset by this and went to stay with her parents, leaving me and my son at home. Now she's calling me a jerk and has my in-laws texting me and calling me to tell me how much of a horrible jerk I am. I'm just so tired. I feel like a single parent. I do feel bad because I know what I said was mean, but I am also so angry that she's enjoying the good parts of parenting while I'm stuck with the hard parts. She goes out with friends and does fun things and partakes in her hobbies while I stay home with our baby. I have not gotten a day to myself in 5 months. Am I the jerk? Edit. She has nothing medically wrong with her, mentally, physically, or otherwise. I see a lot of people suggesting that something must be wrong, but I'm telling you, she has had mental and physical checkups and is completely fine from a medical standpoint. No PPD, no hormone imbalances, no mental illness. I don't know how many times I have to make this clear. You're the jerk. So your wife is pretty much acting the way that most dads do. But let me guess, it's too shocking for you because she's a woman. Honestly, men act that way and get away with it constantly. It's about time that us moms get a break while you dads step up and at least try to be a parent. Also, no matter what you're throwing a fit about, you have no excuse to yell at her. That's a major red flag, and I hope she dumps you. She deserves so much better. Have you considered a night nurse and/or a nanny? You mentioned that she came from a wealthy family, so she's probably used to having things taken care of for her. You are absolutely not the jerk for having this all come to a head, but if she's not going to put in the work, either you or someone else has to. She's shown you that she's not going to do it. Your options are to continue at your status quo, leave, or find some help to get through this if you want to stay together. Can you lean on her family to help support this? Not the jerk. Look, bud, as parents, we always have duties to fulfill. Your wife isn't playing her part as a mother. I know I'll get downvoted to heck for this because we're on Reddit, but she needs to do better. If she isn't willing to change her ways, which she's proven by now, you should not stay with her. Good luck trying to get custody of your kid, what with you being a man and all. We all know courts aren't big fans of us when it comes to custody situations. But if your kid stays with this sorry excuse of a mom, it will have a seriously bad impact on their upbringing. Please do everything you can to get custody of your kid when you leave, and try to find a good life partner who can be the mother that your kid deserves. Edit. Holy downvotes, Batman. What I love the most is how, if the roles were reversed, y'all would be calling him a deadbeat dad. But of course, since the mom is the lazy deadbeat, you all stick up for her and make excuses. Reddit Logic 101. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
Wow, she sounds even lazier than you are, Reddit boy.
Karen humiliates me in front of our friends by rejecting me for being under 5'10" and still expects me to help her out financially. Important background. I, 19 male, was friends with Lisa, 19 female, and we had a few other people in our friend group. I met these people in my freshman year, and I wouldn't consider them super close friends, but we all hung out at least once a week while we were in school. I began to develop feelings for Lisa and decided to ask her out over text around May of 2023. I asked her if she wanted to get dinner with me, and she responded, "Just the two of us?" I said yes, and she left me on red. I was hoping for at least a yes or a no, and I was nervous that things would be awkward the next time we all hung out together. Well, the next time we all hung out was at the library doing a group study for a class we were all in. She came a bit late, and as soon as she sat down, she turned to me and said, "OP, I would go on a date with you, but you're too short for me. Honestly, guys under 5'10" shouldn't even exist." Ouch. "I would just see you as my little brother or a friend." She started laughing, and so did the other girls. My guy friends were just quiet, and they sat there awkwardly. I was a little disappointed they didn't defend me, but oh well. For reference, I'm 5'7" and she's 5'3". I was embarrassed, and I said, "You could have said that in private." I ended up leaving early and limited my hangouts with that group. In the few times I did hang out with them, Lisa acted like there was nothing going on between us. Fast forward to August, Lisa texted the group chat asking if anyone would be able to lend her $750 for her housing deposit. She was frantic and explained that her parents were kicking her out for personal problems, and she needed to put down her housing deposit, otherwise her on-campus housing contract would be terminated and she wouldn't have a place to stay. Everyone in the group chat said they couldn't help her and they wished that they could. That's when Lisa decided to privately message me. It's no secret that my family is well off and we don't have any struggles. This came up when we were talking about financial aid and how much we were getting, etc. She asked me if she could borrow $750 from me and that she would pay me back as soon as possible. I was furious and told her no, questioning how she could ask me after she embarrassed me in front of everyone back in May. That's when she said she was getting kicked out because she likes women, and that's why she rejected me the way she did. She didn't want her friends knowing that either. She was basically begging me as she wouldn't have a place to stay if she didn't pay her housing deposit. I told her that it wasn't my problem and I promptly blocked her. This led to me getting a flurry of messages from my friends in the group who accused me of having no heart and to grow up and deal with rejection. I blocked all of them. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. If your friends are so worried about Lisa's ability to pay her housing deposit, then they should pay it. If you feel like being petty, you could always say that you're a little short this month and you can't help. Not the jerk. She didn't want to be humiliated, so she decided to humiliate you? She could have rejected you in private and explained why, and no one would have known. That way, you'd have kept a good relationship and possibly would have been willing to lend her the money. But she didn't. She decided to distract from her by making you the center of ridicule. Made her bed, now she gets to lie in it. Not the jerk. I'm 5'4" and I don't date guys under 6 feet. I've hooked up with guys who are around 5'10", but would never have a serious relationship with them. But I would also never say anything as cruel as she did. There are much nicer ways to reject a short dude without actually telling him that his height is what makes him undesirable. But just a dating tip to help you in the future. If you're under 6 feet tall, you really need to have redeeming qualities to make up for it. Go to the gym and build muscle. Work hard in your career so that maybe one day you can find a single mom who needs help with her kids financially. They're usually willing to lower their standards if it means helping to provide for their kids. With as many dating apps as there are, we just don't have to settle anymore. And I know this may be tough for you to hear, but all you can do is improve yourself in other ways to try to make up for your shortcomings. Not the jerk. I guess you haven't heard of the 3 6s, bro. 6-figure salary, 6 feet tall, and 6-pack abs. Fortunately, I have all 3, and I've never had any trouble dating. But it sounds like you're going to have to lower your expectations, bro. We all have a number on the 1 to 10 scale, and shooting out of your league is never going to work out well for you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his friend? Please let us know.
As long as someone takes decent care of themselves, I don't care how tall they are. I think it's what's on the inside that really counts. I don't know, maybe I'm just old-fashioned.
Am I the jerk for not helping my wife with the baby after she stayed out partying all night? I, 30 male, and my wife, 29 female, have been married for 4 years now. We have a 2-month-old daughter. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, and I work as a software engineer. I work remotely, so it hasn't been that awful to split responsibilities. We decided that we would be taking turns this weekend to take time for ourselves. Yesterday, my wife went out with her friends for a girls' day out. She said she'd be back by around 8 p.m. and to not wait for her to eat dinner together. At around 8:30 p.m., I called her because she still hadn't come home. She told me her friends were planning to have a sleepover as well, and she requested me to take care of our baby tonight. Before I could reply, she hung up on me. The thing is, our daughter, Rose, is colic, so she doesn't sleep well. We usually take turns taking care of her because she cries a lot, and it's very hard for one person to watch over her. I had to stay up all night yesterday with Rose. My wife came home at 4 a.m. and she was completely drunk. She just blacked out on the bed immediately after getting home. At around 8 p.m., I got us fries, nuggets, burgers, and drinks for both of us. At around 9 a.m., my wife woke up and said she felt very sick and asked me if I could take care of Rose for a few more hours so that she could eat breakfast and rest for a bit. I was exhausted at that point because I hadn't slept all night yesterday, but I agreed. I was really annoyed with her at that point though, because today was supposed to be a break for me and her getting drunk wasn't part of the plan. We both had breakfast and she went back to bed. I was scrolling Insta while waiting for my wife to wake up. At 1 p.m. she hadn't woken up yet and I ended up having to cancel my lunch plan with my friends. I was beyond angry at that point, but decided to wait for her to wake up instead of waking her up. She finally woke up at 3 p.m. I handed Rose to my wife and told her I'm going to the basement to watch a movie and take a nap. I also asked her to not disturb me until I came out on my own unless there was an emergency. I made myself a few grilled cheese sandwiches and took the strawberry shake with me to the basement. I set up an air mattress and some pillows, then I locked the door. Then I watched a few episodes of my favorite show, ended up falling asleep midway through the show, and woke up around 7 p.m. to 40 missed calls from my wife. When I went up to check on her and the baby, she said that I was very irresponsible and rude for leaving her alone with the baby for so long. I got mad and told her, at least I didn't get blackout drunk and leave you to take care of a colic baby for more than a day on your own without any sleep. She started crying and told me I was horrible for guilting her like that. Am I the jerk? Your wife is so wrong, really stunningly wrong. First for staying out until 4, second for drinking so hard she was still feeling bad at 1 p.m., and then for having the audacity to yell at you for taking a 4-hour nap. Not the jerk, and hang in there. Not the jerk. I don't get all the people judging OP. They both needed the day off. They had a deal. She broke the deal. He was very nice to her and gave her more free hours from his own time, and yet she can't deal with her own baby for an afternoon? I get babies are exhausting. It comes with the territory. Mom is a stay-at-home mom. She needs a break. But OP is exhausted too. He was taking care of his baby, who doesn't sleep well, for more than 24 hours all alone. The mom needs a reality check. She was the one who chose to get drunk when she knew full well that the next day she needed to take care of the baby. Not the jerk. My parents ask me all the time why I'm not married yet. I have a good job, a nice house, and have no trouble getting dates. But this right here is why. Most young men who get married now end up just like this guy, not appreciated and walked all over. If he sticks up for himself, she'll leave you, take your kid, and you'll be paying alimony and child support. It's like loyalty is just not a thing anymore. I'd love to have a family of my own, a wife and kids, and work to provide for them. But every friend I've had who's gotten married has ended up in a similar position to this guy. He'll soon be divorced when she decides to leave him, and he'll rarely see his kid. Not worth the risk in today's world. Edit. I knew I'd be called insulting names for saying this instead of having a logical explanation for why I'm wrong. When you feel the need to resort to juvenile behavior like name-calling, it usually implies that you're the one who's in the wrong. My neighbor hit my car and lied about it, so I ruined 300 pounds of meat while he was on vacation. This happened about 5 or 6 years ago. For some context, my neighbor, who we'll call Chester, is your stereotypical weekend outdoorsman type. He owns at least 10 different baseball caps, and they all have camo on them. He's one of those. He drives a Jeep, which will be important later, and usually spends his weekends either hunting, fishing, or prepping for when the bombs drop. I tried to explain to him once that we were within the fallout range of a major city, so if we got hit, we'd be done either way, but whatever. Everyone needs a hobby, and some people's is collecting canned peaches. 2 weeks before the revenge, I came outside to see my car had a broken window on the passenger side, and that part of the frame was dented just above the door handle. I can tell immediately from the size and shape of the dent exactly what it was from. As I said, my neighbor Chester drives a Jeep, and mounted on his front grille is a cable wrench he uses for pulling stumps and whatnot. It juts out almost 1.5 feet in front of the bumper and is made of solid metal. Anyone with a picture of the wrench and the shape of the dent in my car could CSI it just from eyeballing it. The dent is almost identically shaped and situated at the same height the wrench was mounted. On top of that, Chester lives directly across the street from me, and he likes to back into his driveway. Conveniently enough, my car is always parked on the street, so he has ample opportunities to hit it. I asked Chester about it, and without saying anything, he shook his head while biting his lip like some clueless cartoon character. I then asked if anyone who borrowed his car might have done it because the winch itself is pretty scratched up, almost like he's been hitting things with it all over town. Again, Chester silently shakes his head and then tries to tell me it was probably teenagers. No exposition, mind you, he just blamed it on teenagers. I was fuming, but kept my composure and went home to call the police and my insurance company to report it. I managed to get a competent police officer who told me point blank that it was clear what happened, but without a witness, it would be pointless to try and prove it. The insurance agent was equally certain of Chester's guilt, but ended up recommending I pay out of pocket for the repair. Since I was parking on the street, it was a factor the insurance company might use against me if I filed the claim. When it came time for them to recalculate and adjust my monthly rate, I could see a significant increase. A few hundred out of pocket right now could save me several hundred a year going forward if my rate was increased due to my own negligence, which is what the claim would, unfortunately, be categorized as. Raw deal for sure, but at least he was honest with me. Fast forward to 2 weeks later, Chester and his family are going up north to rough it in nature for a week, and despite my cold attitude towards him in recent days, he asked me to keep an eye on his house while he's gone, since I'm the only person in the neighborhood that he trusts, apparently. I agreed to do it, not because I had any type of revenge in mind, but because he gifted me a large case of beer for my service. His one request was that I call him if we have any extreme weather because he'd need me to check on something. 2 nights after he left, we had a nasty storm. Wind, hail, and even a few rolling blackouts. The next morning, I called Chester to ask what he needed me to check on, but he didn't answer. Knowing Chester, he'd probably set up camp in some rural part of America with no cell phone service, even though he asked me to call him if this happened. After a few failed attempts, I went over to his house to inspect for any potential issues that might have arisen from the weather. I figured he was probably worried about his garage flooding since his yard was frequently a moat after heavy rain. I went into the garage and there was no flooding, but something caught my eye immediately. 4 large freezer chests, lined up side by side, taking up a huge chunk of the wall. I peeked inside and immediately realized what Chester was worried about. All 4 of them were packed from floor to lid with meat. Some of it was still in packages from the grocery store, and some of it was wrapped in butcher paper, likely game picked up from Chester's hunting exploits. But on top of one of the freezers was something else that seemed out of place. It was a red Solo cup full of frozen water, with a penny sitting on top. I thought that was weird and dismissed it immediately, but curiosity got the better of me later that day when I got home. I decided to Google it, and what I learned instantly clicked as a way to get the ultimate revenge on Chester for hitting my car and sticking me with the repair bill. There's an old life hack that people used to use when they went on vacation. You freeze a cup of water, then place a penny on top of it and stick it in your freezer. If the power goes out, the water will eventually melt and the penny will fall to the bottom of the cup. If you return home and the penny is at the bottom of the cup, your freezer was off for an extended period of time, and now everything on it has potentially defrosted and become unfit for consumption. I immediately got up and ran back to Chester's garage to scope out the legitimacy of my nefarious deed. As luck would have it, Chester's circuit breaker was hidden behind a tool shelf, not directly visible to the naked eye. Who would put a shelf in front of a circuit breaker? Chester, of course. So I promptly took the cup out of the freezer and sat it on Chester's porch to let it get a little sun. After a few hours, the ice had melted enough that the penny slipped right to the bottom of the cup. I then put the cup back in the freezer, being very careful to position it exactly where it was when I took it out, before moving on to the last phase of my insidious plan. I started blowing up his phone with calls and text messages. "Chester, where's your circuit breaker? I can't find it and your power is off. Get back to me ASAP." I did this countless times over the next 2 days before I finally got a call back from Chester. He told me immediately where to go in his garage to find the circuit breaker, which of course I already knew thanks to my prior detective work. I set the phone down and flipped the circuit breaker twice, once to turn it off and then a second time to turn it back on, giving it just enough time to mess with the digital clocks on all of his appliances. And with that, my revenge was complete. All that was left was for Chester to come back home, which took another 2 days. When Chester got back home, I was nervous but eager to see if my charade had worked. The next day, I got a knock on my door. It was Chester. He asked me if I wanted some meat to give my dogs. Apparently, the power had been off for too long and all the meat in his freezers had thawed out while he was gone, so he was throwing it out. I asked him how much he had, and he said it was probably somewhere close to 300 pounds. He didn't want to waste it all, so he asked if I wanted to give some to my dogs. I graciously helped myself to roughly half a freezer's worth of meat, some of which I stored in my own fridge, and the rest Chester was nice enough to offer to hold in his own freezer until I needed it. The kicker is that Chester had no idea the meat never actually defrosted and was still perfectly good. That night, I helped myself and my dogs to a couple of nice steaks, courtesy of old Chester himself, who was still busy walking the neighborhood, unloading the tainted meat on everyone who had a cat or a dog that might want it. It was at least 4 or 5 months before me and my dogs went through all the meat Chester had given us. I don't know if I made all the money back for the repairs on my car, but I didn't have to buy any meat for many a fortnight. Genius to not actually spoil the meat. Odd this guy would hit your car and say nothing, but still trust you. I thought initially you were just going to waste all the meat, and I was going to call you a massive jerk, but this way is much better. Well done. Am I the jerk for not wanting to take my ex-husband's kids on vacation? I, 39 female, have been divorced from my ex-husband, 41 male, for 9 years. We have 2 kids who are 12 and 9. My husband got married to his new wife and they have 3 kids in total who are 9, 5, and 5. They're expecting a 4th one. Me and my ex-husband share custody of our kids, but within these 9 years, there has been a drastic change in our economic status. I got promotions and now earn near 6 figures, but my ex lost his job. It caused his income to change and become low. His recent job pays slightly less than his previous one. Here's the issue. Since I can afford to buy a lot of things for my own kids, my ex and his wife don't like it. They say it's unfair to their own kids because they can't afford to buy new things like I can. And all of the kids should have the same stuff. Last year, I bought my son a laptop because he got the highest score on his exams. My ex didn't like it and told me that I'm spoiling my kids and making them into entitled brats. The issue arrived because his oldest with his wife, who's 9, also wanted a laptop too. And for my ex, their money is tight. He's the sole provider in their house, and his wife is mostly a homemaker, but works part-time sometimes. However, it's not like I do this to show off. I do tell my kids to be humble about their things they get and to not brag about them. I do buy gifts for my ex's kids on their birthdays and Christmas. In August, me and my entire family have planned to go to Italy. It's supposed to be a family vacation. I'll be taking my kids with me. They're excited too. My ex had no problem until he called me and asked if I could take his kids with me too. I was kind of shocked. He explained that they can't afford to travel, and his other kids were insisting that they want to go on holiday with us as well. They're sort of jealous of my kids for going abroad on a holiday. I straight up said no. I won't be taking responsibility for someone else's kids. Though I make a lot more money than he does, I can't afford the accommodation for 6 people. I told him his kids are none of my concern. After he hung up, I got messages from his wife calling me cruel and other names for ruining her kids' happiness, and she said, "I hope you're happy making kids cry. God will be pushing a greedy jerk like you." My dad thinks I did the right thing, but my mom thinks I went too far and told me to not take my kids so that their half-siblings won't be upset with them. My brother suggested that I pay half the price and let my ex pay the other half, which I know he will never listen. I rejected both the ideas. There's no way I would leave my kids for days to go on a holiday in another country. Was I really cruel? I know it's not the kids' fault. I understand their urge to go on holiday, but asking me to pay for 3 additional kids is too much. Edit. Since people are asking, he did cheat on me while I was pregnant. His new wife is indeed his mistress. I didn't mention it because I didn't think it was relevant to the story here. But it is relevant. This woman and your ex, after cheating behind your back, are name-calling you, berating you, and demanding that you financially care for his affair baby and other kids. This is not okay. They are horrible people. I know it was 9 years ago, but that's not right. OP. I do not take care of his kids. I only pay for the stuff for my kids. I only buy them gifts on Christmas and birthdays. As much as I dislike both of them, their kids are innocent. The least they deserve is birthday gifts. Not the jerk at all. Frankly, I worry about your kids and how stepmom and dad might be treating them. Are they guilting them into sharing, shaming them because they have more, and thus they do too? OP. No, I strictly told them not to push my kids to share anything unless they want to. They have no authority over my kids' stuff. My ex hasn't done anything like that. The fact that you buy gifts for his kids from his affair is more than anyone should have to do. How dare he ask you to take his affair kid and the reason your marriage ended on holiday? I'd tell the new wife the next time she says you're cruel for not taking them that homewreckers have their own place in heck, so she should watch the stones she's throwing in her glass house. OP. The irony is that she's a Christian woman. She thinks if she repents enough, God will forgive her sins. Also, she's extra mad at me because I told her that she should have invested in some birth control rather than whining about having too many kids to feed. OP. I have a college fund for my kids. I started it when I got pregnant with both of them. My ex does contribute to it a little as well. Even if he didn't, I would still have enough by the time they're ready to use it. Also, I buy them gifts because I want to. They've been calling me aunt ever since they learned how to speak. I'm not that cruel that I would punish them for their dad's mistake. I do not buy them expensive gifts either. Regardless of how their mom and dad are, they're very good kids and very well behaved. Update. So yesterday I went to my ex's house to pick up my kids. While I was there, his kids ran up to me and said they're very excited to go to Italy with me. I was confused. I never mentioned the trip to them, nor did I tell my kids I would be taking their half-siblings with me. I called my ex and his wife and asked them to explain this. His wife was avoiding eye contact. I demanded an answer from her. She said that she can't break their hearts by telling them the truth. I swear, I was furious. I had enough of this entitled attitude. I yelled at her and told her she must have had a screw loose inside her head if she thinks she can walk all over me like this. How dare she use her kids like this? If she wants a break from babysitting her own kids, she should send them to her mom's house. I will not be a free babysitter for her kids. She did try to retaliate, but I was talking over her. I cannot believe this woman would stoop so low. I screamed at her. I was already having a bad day yesterday, and her entitled Karen behavior was the straw that broke the camel's back. I told my ex to fix the mess his wife made, otherwise I'll take him to court. He tried to justify her intentions. I told him that I will stop sending gifts to his kids if he doesn't fix this. I had been nothing but polite to his wife, knowing that she was the homewrecker that broke my home. But enough is enough. I'm done being nice to them. His 3 kids are not coming with me, and that's final. I even explained this to my kids, who were a little sad but understood. Later that day at night, my ex called and apologized. He was humiliated by his mother for this. He's a grown man asking his ex-wife to provide for things he should be providing for his kids. He also had a fight with his wife because he didn't know his wife lied to his kids. He said he only had good intentions because he wanted all his kids to enjoy equal privileges. I said the same thing one Redditor commented, that our kids are not equal. It's unfair of him to push this equal privilege thing when our kids don't have the privilege of coming from a complete family because their father was a nasty cheater. At least his other kids get a full-time dad and a full house. They don't have to go to therapy to understand why their lives are different. And all of this happened because he can't even be strong enough to keep his marital vows. He failed as a father to them, and he failed as a husband to me. And not only that, he had the audacity to blame me for the divorce. I told him if the roles were reversed, and it was me who had cheated and got pregnant with another man's baby, would he accept me and the baby in his life? I still have yet to get the answer. He just said he was sorry and hung up. Sorry for venting. I had a really stressful day. I have yet to talk to my mom and brother about the issue. I can't wait to go to Italy to drown myself in wine and stuff myself with real Italian pasta and pizza. I may or may not update. Good for you, standing your ground. The new wife has a lot of nerve to try guilt-tripping you into providing for her kids. Then again, a lack of moral compass is how she got herself into this situation in the first place. OP. I think so too. I never yell at people. I didn't even yell at my ex when I discovered he was cheating. I guess it takes one bad day. Am I the jerk for asking my girlfriend to use different body wash? The main point of this post is, I'm allergic to nuts, and my girlfriend's body wash contains almond oil. It isn't life-threatening for me to come into contact with it, but it does cause hives. I asked my girlfriend, Jess, to change the body wash she uses, as I'm getting hives from residue of her body wash in the shower. Jess was initially fine with it after a small back and forth, but has since spoken to friends and believes that I'm being too controlling, as do her friends. My friends are mostly neutral, with a couple saying that I need to nut up and just let her use whatever she wants. A little bit of added context is that we recently decided we wanted to move in together and decided to do a trial run, as Jess still lives with her parents and I rent my own place. So it's easy enough for her to move in with me for a few months to see if living together full-time works for us. It's never been a problem before now, as I've never had a reaction from touching Jess after she uses it, but I'm having a reaction from the residue that's left in the shower, usually on the removable shower head, which I need to use to get clean because I'm a big dude and just leaving it up there doesn't reach everywhere. Jess has always been aware of my allergies. She doesn't eat nuts, and if she knows we're going to do anything together, and the few times when she has, she thoroughly brushes her teeth before seeing me. How is this controlling? I think that because it's not life-threatening, they see it as unnecessary for her to have to change it. They think that me getting her to do it is controlling because it's not needed. Update. I wish I could come back and say that I had seen my own value and got myself out of the relationship, but the truth is that Jess broke up with me 2 days after the post. I was still thinking, and she asked to meet up to discuss things. I went in hoping for the best, but was met by her telling me that it wasn't working, and she didn't see a future for us where we're both happy. That hurt a lot. I spent the past few days sort of realizing how stupid my original post was. Of course I'm not the jerk for not wanting to come into contact with something I'm allergic to. I think a lot of you probably wondered why I'd even had to ask. The truth is that I felt like I was going crazy. I genuinely liked and respected her friends. I thought they were really smart. So to be told that this was the opinion of my girlfriend as well as theirs made me take it very seriously. When I went to my friends and received no support or validation, I started to convince myself that I was wrong. I also learned from the comments that continued exposure could worsen my reactions, so that's handy to know too. This dude dodged a bullet. I can't imagine not wanting to fix something easy to prevent someone else from having a negative health effect. The fact that she went as far as calling him controlling is crazy. I feel for the next dude she treats terribly. I think people overuse words like controlling and manipulative to the point that they forget their real meaning and how serious it actually is. Asking your partner to change body soap is not a big deal, even if it's not causing any issue. People throw accusations so easily nowadays. It's crazy. No more overtime? Okay, boss, whatever you say. Years ago, I used to work for a plastic injection company in my hometown. It wasn't a huge company, but they had 2 plants in my state, 2 in 2 other states, 1 in the UK and 1 in Germany, so not small either. It was a 24-hour production facility, which means the machines run 24/7 except from December 23rd to June 2nd. I was one of 2 delivery drivers who moved finished product from the plant to a nearby warehouse, and I brought raw materials and packaging supplies back to the plant. On a good day, I'd get 4 to 5 back and forth trips done in a 12-hour day. On my last run back to the warehouse, I'd also go around to the floor people and make sure they had what they needed to make it through the night. Driver was the only floor position that wasn't 24 hours, so that nothing would shut down. Well, sometimes they would forget something, and after my last run, I'd have to go back. I wasn't complaining. I got an hour or 2 of overtime every few shifts, and everything ran fine. One day, my supervisor pulls me aside and says I need to stop taking overtime. I explain why, and he doesn't care. No more overtime. I say okay, and we go on with our day. Near the end of the next shift, I'm 15 minutes shy of being able to clock out, and I'm just finishing packing up the truck to do the next morning run when one of the floor people comes over and tells me he forgot something. I say, sorry, no can do. I'm not allowed any more overtime to go and pick up the material. Apparently, if I didn't do it, 3 machines would shut down overnight. If any of you have ever worked in plastic injection, you know those machines get so hot, they melt the plastic being injected. If they had no material flowing in them, they'd have to get shut down or they would get too hot. It can take hours for them to cool down, and they have to be started from a cold state when you go to reboot them. So if it runs out of material, production has to stop. The machine has to take about 10 to 12 hours to cool down and then heat back up. This is all very unfortunate, but I've got to follow orders, so I clock out and go home. The next morning rolls around, and I'm called into the plant supervisor's office. He's my supervisor's supervisor's boss, and is one of the owners of the entire company. He's shaking mad because just as my coworker predicted, 3 machines shut down overnight, and we were going to be out of commission until nearly 2 p.m. that afternoon. He was going to fire me on the spot, but gave me a chance to explain myself. When I told him what I used to do and what my supervisor had told me to do, he let out a big sigh and told me to go back to the floor. and that if I needed to take overtime to keep machines from going offline, to just do it from now on. Shortly after that, my supervisor was called into his office. Now, unfortunately, he's the son of one of the other owners, so they didn't fire him, but I never got yelled at about overtime ever again. Edit. I forgot to include the fact that I later found out my little stunt cost the company something like $3,000 an hour and lost production over the course of an entire day because one of the machine's heating coils broke when it cooled down and had to be replaced. So all in all, I cost them tens of thousands of dollars. Guess it was easier just to pay me time and a half for a few hours per day. I think my Karen girlfriend has been cheating on me with her coworker, but she keeps denying it, so I'm not sure. I'm 35, male. My girlfriend, who's 32, went out tonight with her sisters and friends for a birthday dinner, and she came home absolutely drunk. I've never seen her this drunk before. Long story short, she went to bed, and her friends kept calling her to make sure that she was okay. Her phone was open to a work email, and that's where I noticed her and her coworker had been sending each other pictures that they had no business sending to each other, and talking through email for the past 2 years. I opened her work email, thousands of messages going back 2 years. Pictures, videos. Her coworker is a 45-year-old married man. I confronted her about it, and she's crying hysterically, saying that nothing physical has ever happened between them. But there are messages saying, "Meet me in the back hallway," or "Meet me in the garage." I don't know what to believe. She's saying she didn't cheat and that she will quit, that it was just strictly virtual or whatever. She also lives with me, so that kinda sucks. It'll probably be a process to kick her out. Not sure if I want to continue the relationship after this. What's the best way to go about this? What do you think those messages about meeting up in certain locations meant? Two people in close proximity to each other for 40 hours a week don't exchange those kinds of pictures for 2 years without hooking up. Those messages about meeting were absolutely what you think they were. She's lying, saying nothing ever happened. Send the messages to the dude's wife and break up with your girl. This is why monogamy is outdated and never works. You always end up trying to control the person you're with. My hubby and I decided a long time ago that while we love each other, we have no desire to control each other. He knows about my other partners, and he even has no problem watching the kids while I go on dates. If you actually love your girlfriend, you need to stop being so jealous and either accept her for who she is or just break up if that's too much for you. Well, what do you think OP should do? Should he break up with his girlfriend or not? Please let us know.
I think he needs to find some self-worth. I mean, this should be a no-brainer. Come on, man.
Am I the jerk for telling my mom she and my baby brother ruined my summer? Plus updates. I, 16 female, graduated high school in June. Yes, I graduated early. My mom is currently 8 months pregnant, and she just had my half-baby brother, Ben, in October of 2021, so he's almost 2 now. My full-blood brother, Sam, male 14, was with our dad, who lives 8 hours away, all summer, and he just got back 2 days ago. My stepfather works, so for most of the day, it's just me, my mom, and Ben. I'm with Ben in the morning for 2 hours. During this time, I feed him breakfast, change his diaper, and play with him. I also make my mom coffee and breakfast. My mom sleeps during this time. She wakes up around 9:30 and eats breakfast. Around 10, I walk my dog. When I get back, I put Ben to sleep. My mom plays on her PC during this time. When Ben wakes up, I make his lunch and she feeds him. Then I have to take him outside to walk him. Then I have to take him to water the plants. I have to fetch whatever my mom needs since she can't go up and down the stairs. On top of doing all of this, I had 2 online classes I was taking. I also had a sick dog I was taking care of. With Sam gone, most of the house chores fall on me. It's a lot to handle. I never complained about any of it. I don't know if it's the pregnancy, but my mom has been extremely mean. It only takes her 5 minutes after seeing me to start complaining about something I didn't do or I did wrong. She constantly calls me lazy and compares me to kids my age who have driver's license and jobs. These are things that I want, but I literally do not have the time to because of all my jobs at home. This summer, I wanted to go see my brother and dad just for a week because I missed them. My mom said no because I had to take care of my dog. Fair, I guess. I used to go downtown to the library, and she said I can't go anymore because I didn't do insert chore here, or she needs someone to help with Ben. Right. I wanted to take myself to the movies. No. I want to go to the fair with my brother Sam. No. Yesterday was college orientation. Not only did she text me while I was there, complaining about me not telling her we ran out of dishwasher pods, but when I got home, she ranted at me for 20 minutes about how I always ditch my responsibilities. School starts tomorrow, and I'm so exhausted and sad. I wanted this to be a fun summer. After yelling at me and then telling me to go buy dishwasher pods last night, my mom made me tell her what was making me so upset. I told her I wasn't ready to share it, but she threatened to take away my computer, which I paid for and also I need for college, so I did. I told her I was tired of doing everything for her, that I felt underappreciated, and that she and Ben ruined my summer. She said she was more than capable of taking care of Ben on her own and sent me to bed. It's the next day and she still won't talk to me. She also won't let me help with Ben. I'm feeling a little relieved because it's been a long time since I've had time to myself, but I also feel sort of bad. Am I the jerk? Who's the mom here? My baby brother calls me mom now, so honestly, maybe I am the mother. Can you go live with your dad? I've never lived with him before since she has full custody, but he said I'm always welcome. Living with my dad probably won't be an option because of how far he lives. I've also mentioned it before, and she shot it down immediately. Update. Per your suggestions, I've decided to look into emancipation. In the meantime, I will get my things in order to be able to back myself up. I'm looking for a job through my college, and I'm going to study to get my permit. If I'm able to get my permit this month, I can have my license by February. I agree that I do need to get out of this house ASAP, but it will most likely be after the new baby is born, unfortunately. I also am deciding where I should live. I'm leaning towards my grandfather because he lives on the other side of my country, and he's at least extremely supportive of me and won't expect me to be a slave. A lot of you guys wanted me to move in with my father, but I'm sorry to say he's not the savior you guys want him to be. He and my mother divorced when I was 5, but we've never all been a family. I would see him maybe a few times a month, and now we speak once a month if that. He is by no means my dad, just a friend I check in with monthly who happened to get my mom pregnant. Here's what's happened since I posted. My mom kicked me out of my bathroom and is now making me share with my brother because apparently I'm not able to keep it clean. Mind you, everyone uses this bathroom, and she constantly tells me that it's not just my bathroom, but of course I'm the one responsible for cleaning it. She's found a way to control my devices through some app that uses Wi-Fi to control them. I've gotten 3 15-minute rants about how irresponsible I am. I will no longer fight her and just stick to my plan of getting out ASAP. I've switched all my college classes to online as well, so I can get up and leave when the time comes. I'm done. Thank you guys for all the support. Hopefully when you hear from me again, I'll be out of this house. I want to be a lawyer. I know I can do it. Who knew I could get so much support from Reddit? Update 2. So I have some good news, I guess. I'm free to go. My mom got upset at me today because I was taking care of my dog and my baby brother at the same time, and I forgot to fully clean up after the dog. I've been really stressed lately, and I guess it just slipped my mind to go back to clean up because I was with my baby brother, and then I took him to his bed to sleep, and I went to my computer to start schoolwork. Anyway, I was unloading the dishwasher about an hour later, and she saw that my dog's toys were where I left them and got really mad at me. So I cleaned up and found her in my room. She then complained about how there was a cup in my room. Nothing but water is allowed in bedrooms. I had water in the cup. And after that, my baby brother's food pouch was under my bed. I didn't know his pouch was there, but he often goes into my room while I'm not in there, so that must be why it was in there. She kicks me out of my room and tells me that I can only keep what can fit in luggage and everything else of mine she will give away. So now I don't have a room. I sleep in the living room on an air mattress. I tried to call my grandmother to ask if I could stay with her for a while, but she didn't answer. About 10 minutes later, she asked me what was wrong with me, and I let it all out. Not like last time though. I told her that she specifically is the reason for all of my stress and that she makes me feel bad about myself. She actually apologized and gave me a hug and said it was because she's pregnant. She asked why I called my grandmother. They're not on good terms right now. And I told her that I wanted to move out and take my dog with me, of course. She was fine with it. Like a little too fine. She didn't even ask why I wanted to go. She didn't even say she needs to talk it over with my stepfather. She just said I can go. I'm very happy, but a little conflicted. I know I need to go, but I keep thinking about my brothers, how much she'll struggle with 2 babies by herself. She actually seemed like she felt bad when I told her how the way she was acting made me feel. I will go. I know it's the right choice regardless of my doubts. I'm going to my grandmother's now because she lives in the same city as my dad. 8 hours away, a big city, and it's easier. Meanwhile, I'll get a job and talk to my grandfather about me moving in with him. I think he'll be open to it. He always wants me to visit, and he's extremely supportive. I know it's not the biggest update, but I feel like getting her permission to go was the part I was most afraid of, and I have it now, so I wanted to share. Am I the jerk for telling my husband not to call his ex-wife his wife? So my husband, Daniel for privacy, and I have been married for just under a year, and I love him very much. He has an 8-year-old daughter, Jane for privacy, from his previous marriage, who I love as my own. He's always been respectful and patient, which is part of why I decided to marry him. We met right before lockdown when he had been recently widowed the year before, so we tried to take things slow. We ended up quarantining together, and after 3 years, we decided to tie the knot. The wedding ceremony was everything a girl could dream of, and we've honestly had very few issues in our first year as a couple. It wasn't until we went to pick up Jane from her summer camp that I started seeing an issue. I went to meet up with him at the front desk. I found him chatting with the camp coordinator, which is all well and good, until I overheard what he was saying. He mentioned that, "My wife made me this jacket actually. She was really good at all that sewing stuff." He was referring to his ex-wife, Alyssa for privacy, not me. It bugged me a little, but I brushed it off as a one-time thing, an accident. We don't talk about Alyssa much unless we're around Jane, and even then, he usually refers to her as Jane's mom. I never heard him call her his wife, especially now that we are married. It wasn't until a week or two later that I learned he does this a lot. We were at a get-together with some friends from work, my first time meeting them. It was all good until one of them asked me questions about baseball. I admitted I don't know much about the sport, and he said that was weird because Daniel had mentioned I was really good at the game and even played some in college. It left me very confused. After talking to some more guys, I found out this was a common issue. A lot of them thought Alyssa and I were the same person because Dan called us both his wife. At this point, I got really offended. We had been married for 10 months and he didn't even call Alyssa his ex-wife yet. It was super awkward explaining to people that he still called his ex-wife his wife. It was humiliating, especially the amount he does it. Not just 1 or 2 people, but the whole office. When we got home, we fought. He said he didn't even think about it that way, that since he never divorced Alyssa, he never stopped thinking about her as his wife. He still stands by the fact that Alyssa is his wife, despite how embarrassing it is to explain to people that I'm not his second wife, but rather his new wife and Alyssa his ex. I told him that if he wasn't ready to move on, then he shouldn't have married me, and if he can't commit to being my husband, then he shouldn't get to call me his wife. I spent the next night at my sister's house ignoring his calls. We recently started to smooth things over by not talking about them, but I can tell that this is going to be a sore spot in the marriage, and I'm trying to desperately save it. You're the jerk. She's not his ex, he is her widower. There is a whole world of difference between a marriage that ends in divorce and a marriage that ends in the passing of one of the partners. If you can't cope with the fact that he can love both you and his late wife, then you shouldn't have married him. You are completely at fault here. I'm going back and forth, but I think everyone sucks here. You have to stop saying ex-wife. They didn't divorce. You just have to stop using that term. However, she is his late wife, and you both need to start using that term to refer to her. It's disrespectful of you to call her his ex, and it's disrespectful of him to talk about her in a way that makes people think that you and her are the same person. She's his late wife, and you're his current wife. It's not that complicated. Not going to say you're the jerk, because your husband could simply distinguish the two of you by saying my first wife and my current wife. But you honestly sound like a jerk for repeatedly referring to his deceased spouse as an ex-wife. That's childish and weird. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for not wanting my boyfriend to come on my work trip? I'm a model. I just got an opportunity to go to Japan for a couple of shoots and a brand I'm working on is flying me out. The trouble is, my boyfriend wants to come. It's his dream to go to Japan, and he's insisting that he can pay for his own ticket and stay at the accommodation the client has booked for me. I will be out there for 7 days. It's also my dream to work in Japan. I love traveling for my shoots, but the issue is I get grouchy and diva-like when I'm traveling for work, and I don't want him to be in super excited to be in Japan sightseeing, I want to do this, I want to get there energy. I live with my boyfriend and we do everything together. We just got back from vacation to Italy this summer. He's getting hurt that even though he can pay for his own travel, I just don't want him there, as if I'm going on holiday. There will be things like call times, lunch, group dinners, client meetings, and I just feel like he will make it all about visiting Pokemon Center and Tokyo arcades and not my work. It makes me feel like he's not taking my modeling career seriously, and this is a fun opportunity for him too. He's even asking for time off from his work. I just don't want him to be mad at home while I'm in our dream destination, but I want him to understand that I want to go to Japan with him in our own time on a real vacation, not work. Am I in the wrong for not wanting him there? Should I bring him? Not the jerk. I did my stints modeling in Asia. Korea, Thailand, Hong Kong, and Japan. Most productions won't book you again unless they specify that you can bring someone along because they are paying you for your time. It's business, not leisure. He needs to understand and respect the fact that you are working and you're not there for play. Maybe next time you can ask if they will allow you to bring a +1, but definitely do not let him come along without speaking with your booker first. Exactly. In most other lines of work, this wouldn't even be up for debate. Could you imagine a surgeon bringing their spouse to work with them so they could go sightseeing? It's ridiculous. Not the jerk. Do not let him come and ruin your career. If he was independent and would ignore you completely while he went off to do tourist things, I still would say he should not join you, because even an independent type will expect some level of interaction with you, which you won't have time for. The fact you mentioned in another comment that he is incredibly codependent means to absolutely not allow him to join you. People who just don't have hard, overwhelming jobs that get more intense on business trips just don't get it. Be ruthless about how you communicate this. Do not try to be indirect and gentle because he will not hear the correct message. The fact he's already talking to his work about taking the time off means that you have not been clear enough that this is not an option for him. So you'll need to be clear about that, or this will become an everyone sucks here. You're the jerk. You honestly sound rude and inconsiderate. If I were in this position, I'd love for my partner to come along with me. You can claim you won't have time for fun as much as you want, but we all know you're planning to be having nights out while you're there, and I'd bet anything that you're planning on unwinding with some randos you meet. And you insulting him because he likes Pokemon. Seriously? He deserves better, and I hope he finds it. Drive over my bike? Pay the price. Okay, this story took place a very long time ago in the summer of 1969. I was about 12 at the time. I had an early morning paper route in my neighborhood. One of the first things that I bought with my earnings was a brand new 10-speed bike. It was silver with red trim. I was really proud of it, and I took very good care of it. I also used it to deliver my newspapers in the morning. One of my customers was often leaving for work around the time that I got there. I always made a point of parking my bike well off to the side while I went up to deliver his paper. This particular morning, he turned too soon and too sharply while backing out of his driveway and backed right over my bike, ruining the front sprocket and derailleur. He stuck his head out the window and asked, "Is it okay?" "Not exactly," I said. "Well, that's what you get for leaving it behind my car." He then drove off. I walked it home, crushed and upset. I felt helpless against this adult who clearly had no intention of doing anything about it, and I didn't know what to do. My hurt, frustration, and powerlessness gradually turned to anger. I stopped delivering his paper, and when he complained, I told my supervisor that I was delivering, but he just liked to complain, so ultimately it wasn't held against me. But the real revenge was yet to come. He lived on the main route through the neighborhood that all the kids took to go to the local 7-Eleven and other places. His mailbox sat on a steel fence post loosely set in the ground. That summer, I got in the habit of pulling it up and throwing it over the fence into the cemetery across the street maybe once or twice a week. It was fun and mischievous, but it still didn't satisfy my need for revenge. He had 3 large frond shrubs in his backyard that would grow to 6 or 8 feet tall over the course of the summer and then begin to die back down. They were several feet apart with nothing else close by. One August morning, I threw a lit match into one on the way home from 7-Eleven. I never heard anything else, but on my route the next morning, it was just a burnt husk in his front yard. Over the next couple of weeks, I did the same to the other 2. I was beginning to feel a bit satisfied. Young arsonist on our hands. But one morning, on the way home from delivering papers, I had an inspiration. I saw that the side window of his garage was open. I knew that what I was considering was taking it a bit far. No, you? But I was an impulsive kid, and I thought tit for tat was fair. Back in the day, everybody carried road flares, aka emergency flares, in their cars. So I climbed through the window, found 2 flares, lit them, and stuck one right under each of his rear tires, then climbed out and hightailed it home and went back to bed. I did not go back to see what happened, and I stayed away from the area for several days. I knew that I had ruined his tires. I never saw the results, but I didn't care, and I never did another thing to him.
Note to self, never make the paperboy mad. You will regret it.
Girlfriend ended a 7-year relationship, and I don't know why. I'm a 21-year-old male, while she's 22. We began dating 7 years ago when we were quite young, and everything seemed perfect back then. Looking back, the first 4 to 5 years were really positive from my perspective. We engaged in many activities, got along well with each other's families, and things were great. Around 2 years ago, she started university, and we're both still in the same city, about a 20-minute drive apart. After her initial year at university, she went through an extremely challenging phase. She ended up in the hospital for a week because she couldn't eat or drink on her own. The doctors attributed it to stress and put her on antidepressants. Since she began taking them, our relationship took a turn. Within a span of 6 months, mind you, as everything mentioned occurred in that time frame, and things were excellent before this. She completely stopped showing any interest in me or anything related to me. She didn't inquire about my life, studies, work, friends, or family during these 6 months, even though I was there to listen and support her with her concerns. She started going out frequently, minimum 2 times a week, to bars with her friends. She once referred to them as getting around too much just a year ago. She quit her job despite having been diligent about saving money throughout our relationship. At the start of the summer, I unintentionally saw her bank account and she had only $6.40 left. Despite this, she continues to go out every Saturday, returning home drunk. I don't believe all her drinks are covered by her friends. That about sums it up. I would like to acknowledge any mistakes I might have made and provide a reason for the breakup, but I'm at a loss to pinpoint exactly what I did wrong. I've made an effort to ask her how I can improve things recently because I truly wanted our relationship to succeed. However, her mother texted me this morning informing me that my ex-partner wants nothing to do with me and she blocked me on all platforms. I've never felt this bad before. You become different people in your 20s, and people can change on medicines as well. I'm 29, almost 30, and can absolutely confirm. Who I was when I was 22 is almost completely different from who I am now. It's been a wild ride so far, but I'm changing all the time. It almost breaks my heart to see so many people in their early 20s posting here, but to be frank, a lot of you youngins need to experience their 20s to the fullest, and that includes the crappy stuff. I hope OP picks himself up soon as he is able to and strives for trying new things and being the best person he can be. We ain't here long. Honestly, you're 21 and 22. You're not the same people you were 7 years ago at all. People grow apart. It's normal. The same thing happened to me twice. They were both long-term relationships where they just changed eventually, largely in part due to the influence their friends had on them. Something I've learned is that we as men, we can love you and want you for life, put you first, and not be influenced by our friends to go out and live toxic lifestyles doing stupid things. If only they were capable of loving us in the same way. That's why we are rarely the ones that initiate divorce. All we want is love and companionship. All they want is to have fun and live in the moment. Don't worry, my guy. Once she's in her 30s and has a few kids, all from different dads, that's the point they start regretting their life decisions, and you'll get a message from her apologizing for leaving you and saying how wrong she was to do so. Don't fall for it though. She just wants to use you at that point. I blocked both of them when they tried that on me. Wow, you're a total idiot. Just because you got dumped by 2 girls, that means none of us are capable of showing unconditional love? Get over yourself. No wonder you got dumped twice. Am I the jerk for not paying for my stepdaughter's schooling and college tuition while paying for my kids' college tuition? For some context, me and my ex-wife have been married for 10 years and divorced for 5. When we first got married, I had an adopted kid, biologically my sister's son. I raised him because my sister suffers from partial paralysis from the waist down and in her right arm, so she can't move around without assistance. So when me and my wife got married, we were both 23 and each had 1-year-old kids. We decided not to adopt each other's kids because my ex-wife would lose child support and I didn't want to risk losing custody of my son in case of a divorce. We divorced 5 years ago and all the assets were split equally, but just mainly a small 2-bedroom apartment. After the divorce, I started my own company and got really lucky when lockdown hit, as every major company allowing work from home allowed me to upscale my business rapidly. I now make very good money in the range of mid-7 figures a year. So I decided to set up a fund of around $400,000 that my son would be able to use for college, and the remaining for whatever he wanted to do afterwards, and a trust for my son, so that he and his mom would be taken care of if I passed. Recently, my ex-wife has heard about this and claims that I should be setting up a college fund for her daughter, because I should apparently treat them both exactly the same, even though I don't have legal custody of her, and have gone almost zero contact with them both for the last 5 years, although I was pretty close to her daughter when we were married. Update. From the feedback I got from this post, I realized that I didn't want to be the kind of person that just does things because they have to, And since my stepdaughter was a massive part of my life, I'm planning on setting up an educational trust she can use at 18 to just pay for college for about half of my sons when I get in touch with a lawyer. Not the jerk. Not your kid, not your problem. The father should be paying for the kid's school, not you. She just wants the easy money, to be honest. It would be like winning the lottery using just a smidge of emotional manipulation. She already has 2 parents to save for college. Some people are so unreasonable. Your ex doesn't see the lack of logic in her request, not the jerk. It sounds like your ex has not made any attempt to make sure her daughter continued a relationship with you. If you choose to help her out, great, but you don't have a relationship or responsibility for her daughter. I can't believe Reddit. If I've got my math right, you were this girl's stepdad from age 1 to 11. No, you don't have to pay for her college, but it's amazing how Reddit morality assumes that all that matters is what you are or are not absolutely obligated to do. Do what you want, but did you read this girl bedtime stories? Did she call you dad? It sounds like the relationship has atrophied since you divorced your ex-wife. But was that your stepdaughter's choice? She was 11 when you moved away, right? You've come into an incredible amount of money through a mix of work and luck. You have the chance to do something hugely important for a girl you helped raise for most of her childhood. You could do that, or keep more of the money. I see why you're not the jerk by Reddit standards, but based on what you've described here, you're the jerk in my book.
Karen loses it on me for shopping at a thrift store.
I went thrift shopping this morning. My husband, who's 30, and I, 38, are expecting our first baby in a couple of months, so I've been getting stuff ready for the baby. I hate paying retail prices when I don't really know what he will need. I also hate being wasteful and the ecological impact. So I've been buying some of his onesies and the like from a not-for-profit thrift shop in my area. I've been thrifting since college, whether Poshmark or brick-and-mortar thrift shops, and I've never thought anything of it if the stuff was nice and well-priced. While shopping, I started chatting with another lady who was pregnant and shopping for her baby as well. We were laughing and having a good time enjoying our deals and excitement over our babies. We were going back and forth about the good deals we had found. Like I got a very lightly used Pottery Barn crib online. She got a glider still in the box from a different thrift shop. We both finished and went to check out. As we were walking out, I was getting ready to invite her to coffee when she saw my car and she said in a really weird tone,
"You drive a Tesla?"
I wasn't really sure how to reply except, "Yeah, I really like it," and moved on. Her demeanor changed instantly, like I had done something truly horrendous. She read me the riot act about taking advantage of thrift stores and charity when I clearly don't need it, that I was robbing the poor, and asking me how dare I could do that. I had never seen it that way. I just thought of it as not being wasteful and supporting a good cause. I apologized for offending her and told her I did not see it the same way. But the conversation ended with her telling me to go forget myself and storming off. So, am I the jerk here? Is there a certain income level or point where it is unethical to buy secondhand? Ultimately, not the jerk, but I do see where this other woman is coming from. A lot of thrift shops have started raising prices because thrifting has become so popular, which kind of defeats the purpose. It also means that the shop no longer has those items for someone else who needs them, but genuinely may not be able to afford anything but thrift shop prices. Maybe try to keep more to Poshmark, eBay, etc. than the brick-and-mortar shops. 1000% agree with this as someone who survived on charity shops growing up. While it's good not to waste, just be mindful that poor people simply won't be able to get the things they need if they can't get them from charity stores, whereas you, OP, have the means to buy new if you can't find what you want. If my family couldn't get a couch or a mattress or dining table from the charity shop, we just didn't have one. Slept on air mattresses and sat on the floor. It could be good to leave those rare fine items and simply buy from ethical stores, eBay, whatever. If you have the Tesla, I'm guessing you make enough to be able to go to stores that are more expensive but are committed to sustainability. Also, anyone who thrifts just to sell on Depop or eBay is words this sub prohibits. I'm a former board member of a charity thrift store, and we desperately want you to shop with us. We use that money to support the charitable work we do. All customers are welcome. Not the jerk. She's clearly got some insecurities about finances though, and may have just been projecting them on you. While she was a tool, don't judge her too harshly yet, as you never know what's going on behind the scene. Anyway, you're all good. You're the jerk. Why y'all always trying to take from us? You know you got enough money to buy new clothes if you drive a Tesla. I don't blame her for going off on your behind. I would have done the same darn thing. You out here driving foreign cars while I'm having to have more babies just to get my check from the government to stay up with inflation. You just don't know what struggle is with yo rich, entitled, spoiled little self. I swear I'm tired of y'all coming at me with this BS. And you really want to act like you ain't know this was wrong? What you gonna do next? Go to the food pantry because it's the hip thing to do? Taking from folks who ain't got nothing. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, for real, jerk. P.S. That boy Elon Musk do look like an alien though. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for shopping at the thrift store or not? Please let us know.
I used to go to Goodwill myself back in the day, but these days they're so expensive I find cheaper stuff at Walmart now.
I knew my job, but the new manager thought he knew it better. So I used to work for one of the top delivery companies in the UK. There was a lot less competition 15 years ago. I was very good at my specific delivery job, and I often undertook every office task from single delivery routes to maintaining the office and delivery distribution to all routes. Then one day, in comes the new manager, and it was the cliche that you dread. You probably all have met the type. Suit slightly too big and a trainee mustache. He had just finished uni, and to his credit, he got himself a business degree. The problem with this company was every office around the whole country was run differently, and this poor manager was expecting every person to do things by the letter. But most of the work was done on goodwill, since we were allowed to finish for the day when we had completed our deliveries. It was creating a rod for our own backs, to be honest, but it was nice to finish earlier on lighter days. Finally, on his third day, after watching me daily and asking me why I was doing things in certain orders, I told him my delivery route was complex and required it to be done in a certain order to ensure the time deliveries got there before 1 p.m. and the other delivery staff were fed their delivery materials by myself at certain times to ensure optimum delivery speeds and minimum delay. He replied, "No, it doesn't work like that." I simply stared for a bemused few seconds and said I don't understand. He wanted it by the letter today, as per company guidelines. I argued very hard against it and said he will really regret it because we won't complete, but he insisted I was wrong because it was all timed and measured. So after an exasperated 15-minute heated discussion, I did as I was told, to the letter. The 5 staff I fed deliveries to weren't happy, but understood. It was like a domino effect of carnage. At 12:30 p.m., we all rang in the office to report the failed time deliveries, which he promptly freaked out about because they were strictly monitored. The subsequent enforced break times and shuffling required also left 15 to 20% of each walk unfinished, which he also now has to complete himself on top of the timed ones. He had to fill out reports for all failed 1 p.m. deliveries, all walk failures, and then had to call in managers from the other offices to finish it all. They all finished around 4 hours late. He was not popular. The next day he came to me and asked me to show him the mechanics of the delivery route in detail because I didn't expect that to happen if I'm honest. It was close enough to an apology for me. We actually became good friends over time, but he never questioned me when I said nope ever again. Am I the jerk for refusing to give someone her grandma's jewelry back? I, 26 female, bought a hoarder house back in May of 2018. It's a big 6-bedroom, 4.5 bathroom house. When I bought it, the contract stated that I take ownership of the house and everything in it. The lady who owned it had passed, and her heirs could not deal with the stench and literal mountains of junk and waste in it. You could only open the door not even 8 inches, and some rooms had junk filling them wall to wall and floor to ceiling. Well, it took me these last 4 years to finish cleaning, fixing, and updating it. While doing the cleaning, I made sure to check everything before throwing it out. Ended with more than $20,000 worth of money, some nice jewelry and antique furniture, and finally, a stunning 40s style lace-covered wedding dress. This woman took care of that dress until she couldn't anymore, and it took just some minor work to restore it. I currently don't have a partner, but I decided that it would be the dress I will be wearing if I ever get married. While doing the cleaning, I reached to the heirs to pass on some pictures and mementos, Christmas ornaments, artwork, and because of that, I had one of them, who's in her 30s, on my Facebook friends list. After repairing the dress, I put it on with the jewelry and posted a pic on Facebook. Well, this woman saw it and asked for the dress and heirlooms back. I refused to give them back, and legally they can't do anything. Also, if they meant that much to them, they should have cleaned the house on their own, not sell it to me. Now she and all her family are calling me out on social media. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Recovering hoarder here. Legally, you are in the right. Morally, you're also in the right. And though I cannot speak for the woman whose things you now own, I can give you insight into how I would feel if I passed before I could find homes for my treasures. I would want someone who cared enough to restore and respect the items to have them. You saw the beauty in them, as did she. You didn't just chuck it all in a dumpster. Take them, wear them, be happy to honor the original owner. Her family did not view these things as anything but a hassle. Not the jerk. It's a lot to clean a hoarder's house. They could have hired a service if they were mentally unable to do it, but instead they dumped it on someone else who paid them to take the house and all that's in it. If they cared about the items, they should have offered you money or asked you to keep an eye out. It's yours. You did the work. I don't care how cheap you got the house. It probably doesn't even out, like someone said, because hoarding houses are disasters. Simply put, and it takes a lot of time to clean and restore them. Not the jerk. You bought it, and then, more importantly, you did a ton of work to save and restore these things. Honestly, if I were the grandma, I'd rather have my stuff go to a random stranger who gave a hoot than anyone else. Also, on that note, I'm gonna call out everyone in the comments, fortunately not that many, who say that this dress is more important to the family member. No. It's not that important to the family. Their convenience was more important. Now that all of the hard work is done, suddenly it all means so much more to them. That's ridiculous. My grandmother was a hoarder, and my family spent months cleaning out her house after she passed. We did that because our family heirlooms and history meant something to us. It wasn't easy. It was costly and time-consuming and miserable and really important. You don't get to come back later, after all the work is done, and decide you're suddenly entitled to the fruit of someone else's work. I'm going to have to go with you're the jerk. While you may legally own those items, and they could have looked through the house themselves, once you've opened up communication with the family and friended them on Facebook, flaunting their grandma's stuff, and expensive stuff at that, is like rubbing their loss of heirlooms in their faces. There are many reasons people sell homes as is. People on this subreddit seem to think it's just because they didn't care enough to look through it themselves. But more than likely other factors, like mental health, grief, managing debt after a loss, were all huge factors. Maybe they made a difficult decision and sold the house to pay for a funeral. Who knows? It doesn't mean that what's in the house isn't still significant. OP clearly said that the dress looked like it had been taken care of, probably more than other things in the home, which means that this lady probably wanted to pass on her wedding dress. Flaunting that and her valuable possessions in front of the family through Facebook is thoughtless behavior. To echo what others have said, what is legal and moral are two different things. Well, what do you think? Should OP give back the dress or the heirlooms or not? Please let us know.
I don't know. I mean, I'd give them back. I wouldn't feel like I have to, but I would just do it to, be nice, I guess.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.